Key derivative deal.
There she is. There she is.
Welcome to Jill's.
I was going to say that you're a force of nature.
No,
and
I'm a selfish prick. That's okay. Selfish pricks change the world.
God, I miss her.
I just spilled coffee on my keyboard. Emergency.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
Oh no.
Okay. Call Scotty.
All right. That's enough of that shit. Let's get this show on the road.
Sorry, Jill. Yep. Happens, right? Yep.
Yeah, it happens, but luckily I'm using my laptop so I can use the other keyboard. I'm just going to unplug.
Well, just turn it upside down. I'm sure it'll work, right? Yeah. Drop the coffee out. Yep.
Get a hairdryer.
Yeah. But anyway, technical problems happen all the time, especially on sci-fi shows. So we're gonna not worry about it at all. Hello and welcome to Indefinite Lunch in Infinite Combinations number 202. And Philip and I have finished reviewing all 10 episodes of the penultimate season of For All Mankind. That is season 5. And it premiered on March 27th, 2026. We know season 6 is coming up, hopefully next year. And I think it will make it, as I just heard that it's already halfway through production. So I thought it'd be fun to have a bit of a wrap party, including all our favorite moments from the season, what we think it all means, and any predictions we have for season 6, the final season. And since it's already filming, I have a strong hope that we will get it next year. And so, oh goodness gracious, what? Oh no, my other keyboard is typing. I didn't know which.
Well,
no,
according to the Akutas,
Okay.
The scripts for season 6 are uniformly excellent.
Awesome. Oh well, you know what? I trust Michael and Denise Akuta because they're Star Trek legends, right?
Well, and they love working on this show. They've certainly done a great job.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, the show looks so amazing. I mean, it's always tough to predict the future and alternate history, but it just looks so lived in and believably from a sci-fi element, and that's one of the things.
I mean, I feel like there's some people in the fandom. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. Did my microphone go off too? Am I frozen? That's funny.
We can hear you, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay. You can hear me, but you can't see me.
Well, you're frozen, but that's okay, I guess. As long as we can hear you, that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we know you're
the
still.
Marsies aren't sabotaging your feed, right? Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great arc in this season. I really loved. I mean, I've loved all the seasons, but this one really did a great job of forwarding the story.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, I think it's the best yet, and I can only anticipate how season 6 will go because I mean it's only gotten better for me. But then again, a lot of people in the fandom have been kind of, at least from what I've seen on Reddit and in some of the Facebook groups, people have kind of gotten to sort of like, I guess the middle of this season was kind of like a lull for them. Like they didn't really like care for the drama in a sci-fi drama, which I thought was kind of strange to me. But I feel like as it's become more science fiction, it's become more like the quality of it has gotten increasingly more in sort of my wheelhouse where, I'm a big science fiction fan. So, them doing this sort of like the moon is a harsh mistress sort of thing, but on Mars is sort of, and then, Kim Stanley Robinson did his own Mars trilogy where it's kind of like the beginning of a Mars civilization. So I was eating all that stuff up. That's why this season is just, it's setting up what I can only hope is going to be a stellar, or rather, maybe hopefully an interstellar season 6. We'll see what happens.
I think you're right about that. I mean, Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy, Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars, is one of the great sci-fi trilogies of all time in my estimation. And the whole idea, like one of the great scenes in those books is when the space elevator collapses and it falls so slowly that the rotation of Mars, it falls along, I guess it's the equator. And the fact that they're building, I mean, there's been a lot of people that said, well, Babylon 5 did it better, or The Expanse did it better, or
Yeah.
and to me it's like, but those were more science fiction. The thing about this show is it's so thought through that they are extrapolating what would actually happen with our level of technology in this sort of alternate future where NASA was able to patent its own inventions, and now you've got the M6 and everybody contributing. It's not fantastical sci-fi. It's as real as they can make it based on our technology. And I think that I saw a lot of what you were saying, how people talked about in the Reddit threads, oh, they weren't as enamored of this season, and they don't like the fact that you're not all over the planet anymore, and there needs to be more space adventure, or you're not. And I totally disagree with that, because it's progressing the way it should. I mean, once we've moved off world, the concerns of the show are not so much terrestrial anymore, by definition. And so as we've moved out into the cosmos, the show is going to stay there. It's not like bouncing back and forth to Earth sort of defeats the purpose, because now that we're on Mars, we, the viewers, are Marsies. And if you were to...
What do you think about that term, Marsies, instead of using Martian? Because, of course, I guess the only official Martian would be Alex.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think it's a nickname. I think if people were calling themselves Martians, it would be... It's very Ray Bradbury, but it would be too pretentious, I think.
Yeah, it might be a
if
little
you
bit
weren't born there,
for
if
us.
you weren't born there, you're not a Martian.
Yeah, I think there might be a distinction about that maybe in season 6, where it's like if you're a Marsi, you're kind of like a newly minted Martian, but you're not exact. You haven't earned the term Martian just yet.
Yeah,
that's coming. But
I like.
Yeah.
Thank you, Philip. I like that we just jumped right into it, but because I spilled coffee all over the place, I didn't get a chance to introduce you guys or the chat. I want to say hello. Make sure I say hello to everybody here. We've got Jamie Lynn Simons, Canadian Spider-Man is here. Gavin is here too, as well as a Trek reviewer. And ILIC Corey is here also. And of course, Mark D with the C, also on the panel. Thank you for joining us today. And UK Danger Man Repairs, Love for All Mankind. The early seasons were so inspiring. Hope you're well. Jill and company, and I did get UK Danger Man into For All Mankind, so I did help spread that. And LDG Free the Net is here too. Oh, you gotta free that net. Okay, so we need it more now than ever, really. And thank you so much, Robert Meyer-Burnett, for being here today to talk about the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
And Mark D with the C, and of course, Philip, who's been here for every single episode that we reviewed for season 5. And so as we did get into season 5, we got into the 2010s, and into season 6, we'll get into the 2020s, and so what all that means. And so, of course, they expanded the Mars colony, and so now it's a country. We've got all the way through independence, basically based on the American independence. We saw all those parallels, and we'll figure out what they'll have to go through as a young nation is basically what we're going to find out in season 6, and also hopefully, as you guys were already mentioning, expanding outward into the solar system. I don't know that we'll get extra, beyond the solar system, but that would be fun.
No. But well, that would again the show would move into an area that it doesn't really exist in.
Mm-hmm. I don't see them doing it until like the very, very end, like an epilogue for the whole end of the series, but I don't see them doing it in the season.
Oh, like a flash forward at the end, like they've done,
like
maybe
a distant
with
future where it's like, oh, here's a glimpse of like a Star Trek like future, but I don't see them doing it to where it's like we'll see like a ship, and then that's it, and then leave the rest of it to the imagination.
And Gavin's in the UK, so he says American independence.
Yeah, but the progression is so wonderful in the show. Yeah, as Robert was saying, the tech, it's that alternative future where the Soviets land on the moon first, and that from that starting point, that one divergence, everything changes, and the development makes sense. Like everything is focused towards space, the space race and space travel. We've had gotten away from it for many years, and now getting back to it. I grew up as my dad worked in was all these subcontractors, but he worked on the lunar orbiter, which took pictures of the moon for the Apollo landing. And I have the original Moonrise poster that he got, or Earthrise, and he's always very proud of that. So I love that. So I grew up kind of in that lore all the time. My dad always talking about the space program, and it's just wonderful to see that what would have happened if we kept going. And it seems very grounded, the tech. It's not outrageous like we've got faster than light drives. It's all very incremental in the development. And the interesting thing in Mars, right, there's only what 4,000 or 5,000 colonists on Mars,
like
or people on Mars.
Yeah.
So it's a very small number of people. So I'm wondering what's going to happen at the end of the season. It looks like they've gained some independence, but aren't they really dependent on Earth for supplies and food? And
Right now they are, but that's the devs' whole plan with building Maru is to make Mars self-sufficient. And also, Mark, how did I not know your dad worked for NASA? That's amazing. That's really cool. And yes, we did get an announcement of the crew for Artemis 3, which I'm excited
that's this
about.
morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
He even got the hat.
And they changed the mission parameters as well.
Oh, they did?
I think they're docking in Earth orbit and then going to the moon, as opposed to docking in lunar orbit. I gave a cursory glance to something. I don't know. I didn't read it in depth. But another thing that I think that is really interesting about the whole, for me, the entirety of this show, the Apollo program was a political. I mean, we had to beat the Russians to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And once we did that, we as a nation, our government lost the will to continue space exploration, because once there wasn't the political pressure to defeat the Soviets, then it was like, well, why do this? What are we getting out of it? Then those discussions about how much money everything cost. And what I really love about this show is because the Soviets landed on the moon first, they always had a leg up in front of us. So, and they had a moon base like we had a moon base. So we had to keep going. And it shows the difference. I mean, what's sad to me about the overall, I think about our reality, is that by tying scientific exploration and scientific research to politics, you're inherently hamstringing the advancement of humanity. And this show says, well, what if we didn't do that? And early on in For All Mankind, they kind of breezed over this. But the idea that NASA owned its own patents on what it discovered allowed NASA to become self-sustaining, so it was no longer constrained by political concerns in Washington. And I thought that was one of the most interesting things about the show, because then they can just do whatever they want.
Being a government organization, it still was beholden a little bit, so that's why they expanded outward to the commercial space sector.
Yes,
exactly. Not even that. We didn't see practically anything about NASA this past season. I'm kind of thinking that's because President Bragg probably put like a muzzle on them this season. And so I can only imagine what season 6 will come in with, how NASA's been sort of relegated to like the back, of the whole thing. So it's an interesting idea because you're right. It has kind of gotten from, the first space race was national, and then the second space race, it was between three different groups, and two of those were nation states and then a corporation. And then the third space race was between two corporations representing, not really two nation states, but the kind of evolution that has gone on between the Soviets and the Americans. And so it's kind of fascinating to watch.
Yeah. And I think that's, a lot of people just want to watch a science fiction action adventure show, and I get that. Mm-hmm. But I also think that there's an underlying idea in this show about human technological advancement and why it's important, just like knowledge is important for its own sake. That it's so weird that the entire American educational system has been turned into an economic model. We have to teach for the test. We have to get so many kids graduating, and we have a completely undereducated population now because of that.
Well, and the A plot for this show is basically what happens when automation tries to replace humanity, and that is actually interesting because that ties into what you're talking about education. A lot of kids are overusing. It's not real artificial intelligence; it's large language models, but it's a step towards it, and that's a struggle for a lot of teachers to stop that.
I mean, as somebody who's teaching right now, I mean, I'm a teaching associate at San Diego State, and so I see it all the time where these students are trying to like circumvent sort of what I thought of as like the traditional structures of education in English. And so I'm an MFA student in creative writing. And so my whole thing is like, you can use AI for certain things, but like you can't relegate, because I've done experiments where, you can generate whole texts of, something, with AI writing, but it's never going to reach the quality of like a human writer where, a human writer just has the kind of inclinations and the kind of creative will that a machine, I don't even think we're ever going to get to like an iRobot style universe where we'll need to impose 3 laws of robotics to kind of get these things going. But, if you listen to some people online in the chatter, it's like, we're hoping for a Butlerian jihad. And I'm like, you don't want that.
I believe that programmers should implement those rules anyway, even though it's not real AI yet, because that'll get them in the practice of always doing that. But UK Danger Man says here, it's kind of sobering to discover that space travel, which should be an inspiring and necessary development for the species, has been politically driven. We're so vulnerable right now. Yeah, that is.
But I think that's kind of the overarching point of this show, is to show us, we the viewers, that it shouldn't be. That there's a reason, when you have people like Dev who has a dream of building a city on Mars and becoming a multi-planet species, and we're seeing it. What's wild is how we're seeing that play out in our world right now. And like say what you want about Elon Musk and SpaceX, whether he invented anything or not, he's a figurehead at the front of a company that has revolutionized space travel in a relatively short period of time. And you can laugh all you want at the how Starship keeps blowing up, but if you look and see the technology of Starship, they're implementing what the Russians were going to do back in the 60s and didn't do because Korolev died in 66. And now we're seeing that character in Star City, and they were building rockets the same way that Elon Musk is building rockets today. But because Korolev died in 66, by the way, the same year as Walt Disney, there's so much, by the way, there's so much in these shows that the writing staff has touched upon. I marvel every week at how smart this show really is and how much they really know their history, especially space history. And Rise Eye fans, between what he was doing in House of the Dragon and what he's doing now as the chief designer, what an amazing actor, what an amazing character that guy is. And unfortunately, he died. The real chief designer died in 66.
You didn't even know about. You didn't even know that, right? The Soviets covered that up, and no one really knew how important.
No one knew his name.
No one knew his name. Yeah, which is unbelievable. Yeah,
and he was like a dissident too.
Yeah, he was sent to Siberia at one point and almost died there. And
there's a lot of interesting parallels between Korolev.
That's what I was thinking. Arena went to Siberia too, but I've heard people say that that was a cushy one as far as Siberia
It
goes.
looked so cushy to me, but
it is like late Soviet Union. It's not like early Soviet Union. It's a little different. But the interesting thing with that is that spoiler alert for Star City. Venus might be a thing they go to pretty soon, and so we didn't see any of that. And I remember reading a few years ago that the Russians were saying that, well, Venus is a Russian planet because we were like the first people to send anything there, and it's like we don't really know what happened on Venus, in For All Mankind, but we also don't know what's going on the moon by season 5. But I like the fact that these things are still in existence. We just don't know what the status is, and I think that that's still fertile ground for storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was interested to see if the moon had become a tourist location at this point. I wanted to
Yeah, I was
learn a
thinking
bit
it'd be
more
like
about
Ad
that.
Astra, where it's like completely commercialized. You have like an Applebee's on the moon, Starbucks, and all that. That would
I
have been
think
kind
it
of
has,
interesting.
right? Didn't they kind of I'm trying to remember, but you know, the original satellite that they put in orbit, you know, that crashed, or you know, that episode, was that the second or third season? I'm trying to remember the seasons, but uh, you know, that was mainly for tourism, right? So you got to imagine if it's that easy to get to the
Oh, you're talking
moon.
about the
I
space
mean,
station Polaris? Okay.
the space, yeah. So getting to Mars now is basically semi-routine, right? With their advanced
Mhm.
rockets, and so getting
Yeah,
to
it's
the
like a
moon,
monthly cycle
Yeah,
they
it
have
just
now.
takes time.
it's almost like 2001. We're getting to the, you know, getting to the moon is just no big deal. So I can imagine there'd be tons of space tourism. But yeah, in this season we didn't really. Yeah, you're right. We got the scene in Siberia, I guess, with Irina. There wasn't much on Earth, which I was fine with, right? And I did love the drama because these characters are so well written, and I love the conflict in Dev. That whole setup where he's got his overreaching goal of that city on Mars, but he wants to automate, right? Which logically, I guess, is the way to do it when you think about it. And you know, once you know, they find out, once that gets leaked, that sets up that whole political conflict. And he knew that was coming. You know, the independence of Mars, and I thought it was really wonderfully done with all the
Yep.
character
Well,
interactions.
it seemed somebody seems to have just left that folder just laying out in the open for someone to find. I don't know that it was an accident that Alex found it and revealed it to everybody, but I can't be sure on that one.
Well, but also it would have been, I mean, the idea of automation,
Mhm.
building a city like that, you have to do that because you can't afford, it would be impossible to have the kind of workforce you'd need to build a city like that and feed them and have the sustenance of what human beings would need. And so what was interesting, they said like 95% of the workforce would be automated and 5% would be human. But what I was thinking is like, that's kind of, so if you had 5,000 Marsies and you had 95,000 robots building a city, that isn't that bad of a thing. So everybody was getting all upset about this without actually thinking it through. And I thought that was actually smart writing in a way, because we're always reactionary. Human beings are always reacting at things off the cuff, going, well, we should get mad about that, without actually stopping to go, hey, wait a minute. You know, there's 5,000 of us here right now. If they're bringing in all these robots to start building, great. Let's do that, because we can't even afford, nor do we have the facilities to house more people here. So
Are you
Yeah,
saying
not
that
enough
they
food and
wouldn't have had
resources.
to deport anyone, even though that's what the document said?
well, that was advisory documents. I mean, they were looking into that, but at the end of the day, they would find out that if you have 95,000 robots, you're going to need people to. It goes hand in hand, and I think that also, if you're building a city, an infrastructure for human beings to live in, you know, you're going to need people to actually make sure that that place is habitable.
Mhm.
You know, robots can't make those kinds of decisions, those creative aesthetic decisions. It's like when Alex came in and talked to Dev and said, hey, you know, you gotta make this more habitable for people. And Dev's like, huh, why don't you come to work for me, Alex? You know,
Yep.
and it's all an evolutionary process. And we tend to, I mean, I can't believe I'm as old as I've ever been now on Earth, and I'm watching our civilization descend into idiocy because people have forgotten lessons that were learned hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago, and
I
it's
mean, a lot of that too
frustrating
is
to
like a lot of it
watch.
is, I agree with you. I mean, I listen to a lot of your stuff on your show, and every time I'm listening to Robservations, I'm sort of like thinking about, there is like a backsliding, not just in, democratic values, but also in just like intellectual proclivity. And there's like
I
this
appreciate you
weird,
saying that.
I mean, there's like this, I mean, there's a bizarre thing. I've been meaning to write some letter, but I haven't gotten around to it.
Do
But
it.
it's like, at the end of the day, it's kind of like where our society is getting to a point where confirmation bias is the only currency. And it's bizarre to see.
That's a good point. Yeah, because people, you do these man of the street interviews, and they ask people basic questions, and they have no concept of any of our history or cultural or It's not like naming, what was episode 16 of Star Trek. It's, basic stuff like who are your senators, who's your state rep, who's your, who's the mayor in your town, and people have no clue and no basics.
It could be even simpler than that. You can even ask somebody, as simple a question as, how can you, I can't even think off the top of my head. It's like some people are getting to a point where they can't even do simple math. And I'm at a point where, I'm somebody who became an English major because I didn't like math. So, it's kind of bizarre to see, but yeah.
No, it's scary. So, and that's one thing my dad always told me. People would always pick on, how much everything costs for NASA, but all the benefits that we got, the scientific advances are just unbelievable. So the satellite that he worked on, they had a film scanner, and that's why you always see the old photos are all kind of not lined up. So they would scan a strip of the film, and then they would rotate and they would send it back as ones and zeros back to Earth through a radio telescope. And I was joking with them later, like, why don't they just use the internet, Dad? But just think of the technology to develop film and then send it back to Earth and then redevelop it back here and then piece it all together with, primitive computers. But then we can see the whole evolution. I mean, look, we're talking all around the country. This is, Star Trek tech, which, if you told me 20 years ago you'd be able to do this, it's just unbelievable. And a lot of it is because of advances of the space program, satellites, communications, things that people take for granted, but you always have to invest money. Like when he was working at PerkinElmer, he said we had one of the first industrial lasers, and all the guys there, in the research, they're like, well, what do we do with it? We have a laser, but how could we use it? And look at how often laser technology is used. Just your CD, now a CD player is obsolete, but just basic functions. You've got, lasers taken for granted, but it spawned all these other
There's
developments.
Still some of us who love physical media and analog tech from the past and digital stuff. So
yeah, that's an interesting point. That's one of the biggest differences between For All Mankind and our universe is that the World Wide Web is a really different thing. The social media aspect is not quite there in their universe, and that might be a good thing.
I think,
but it's also a disconnecting thing as well.
Yeah, I think Jill and I had this conversation a few episodes ago where we were kind of thinking about like the progression, because I think when Al Gore says that the Cold War is essentially over, that's when I think the internet becomes less of military technology and becomes available. So I think it's that the internet is available by 2012, but it's a lot less sophisticated than it is today. Maybe it's like 1990s version
we were
of the
trying
internet.
Trying to figure out why a flash mob was possible.
Well, the computers are more primitive too, which I appreciate. Like they didn't go crazy with computer development, but the rockets and all that tech is much better.
Medical technology is even ahead.
Yeah, and they say it's ahead, but they didn't go crazy with some wild. Which I like. It's kind of grounded. And then I guess maybe this next, do we know what time frame this next season is? Another 10 year.
It starts in 2020. Jump? Yeah,
we know that much.
It starts in 2020, but they said it could expand further than that. So they've always said they wanted to reach present day. So I think it could possibly reach up to 2026, maybe, but that would require year jumps in between during the season, which would be interesting.
Well, I mean, season 3 we jumped like 3 years. So
the 2020, the last shot of the season might be an indication of an event that kicks off something. Like somebody suggested, gravity waves, or because it's Sergei's tech.
That's what I wanted to talk about. The Mars 94 console message. I think that's the biggest thing that everyone points as a clue for what's going on.
What did that translate to? Did it say discovery? Or what was
it? Just said. Well, no, it says like detection of GW, which is what people are assuming means gravity waves, and then it says Nikolov, which is like Sergei's surname,
Sergei's last name,
and then right below that it says loading ... So the assumption is that. And we kind of connect this to Star City a little bit because it seemed like Sergei and Korolev were kind of working on like these side projects without like the too much of the Soviet Union brass kind of like breathing down their necks. And I think this might be kind of like what we mentioned before, like Justice for Sergei, but it's like from the grave, where it's like something he had did on a side project is now going to come out in season 6. I think that'll be cool to see.
Because that was a ship that was destroyed trying to make it to Mars before the Sojourner, right?
Well, it wasn't destroyed. It couldn't make it to Mars.
Heavily damaged.
The people had to be rescued, or anybody who could be rescued.
What
Yeah,
I
that's the
love
one we
about
lost 3
that
people.
is that ship clearly had other scientific duties. It wasn't just going to Mars. They were clearly using it for exploration purposes and to gather more information. And I love the fact that the ship just kept doing its job.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Kinda
it
like
still had
Beezer.
power somehow this whole time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Had,
it's
You wonder
nuclear
if we'll
power.
find out, were they controlling it or was it autonomous? I wonder if we're going to find out someone in Star City had sent some commands. Like we're still sending commands to Voyager,
Yeah.
which is incredible. So I
I
wonder
kind
if
of think that it
we
just
find
like
that out.
maybe I think it like randomly detected this thing, and then sort of like how it we kind of randomly detected Goldilocks. It's like these little like black swan events that are just kind of popping up randomly through the For All Mankind universe that just change the entire paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great.
And of course, the big discovery at the end. There's actually life on the moon of Titan, which is incredible. And I wonder if how that's gonna tie in, and maybe there'll be a flash forward. We'll find out life outside our galaxy. I don't think we'll see that during the season, but as you were saying, but they could have a finale fast forward where maybe we do contact life.
But we don't have. There's nothing analogous in our world that would lead. Although with maybe with disclosure.
We'll find out.
But that's why I don't think that it's going to go too far science fiction, because it's so linked to our reality that if they were to go, people talk about, well, we should see an interstellar craft, and I'm like, it's not that kind of show though, really.
Yeah.
But
And
maybe
I
at the
don't think that-
very end, they do that 10-year fast forward. Like I could see
Well, no, I
maybe
think
doing a
that-
montage at the end.
I can see an epilogue where they do that, yeah. But I think, for my money, I think that this is me pitching a third spinoff, but it's like we have the main like historical grounding from the point of divergence to the present, and then we have Star City telling the Russian side. I think we're at a point where I would be pretty much suggesting that, and I brought this up to on the show a few times, where it's like I think we're at a point where we could do like a Planetes sort of like working class sort of like you're in the like you're a debris hauler doing some stuff on the moon or in Earth orbit, and now we have like this 70-year history that you can look into and be like, this is what created it all, but now people are actually living and working in space. And I think that would be great as just a show in itself, without having to go interstellar, without having to do proto-molecule stuff.
Yeah,
we just keep it like that.
I think they actually have plans for that. From what I understand, that there is like to jump ahead 50 years and to extrapolate out, because I think that you could do a show like that. Everybody wants to see, like, to be honest, I don't want to see this show go into alien territory, because it's not about that. It's about us. It's about we, and I think you're absolutely right. I would love to see a show that would extrapolate where might we be in 50 years or 100 years. How would that affect humanity?
Yeah, I'm satisfied just discovering microbes, because that's what I hope for in our reality someday. Maybe not from Titan, but maybe Europa or Mars itself. We'll just have to see.
I mean, we may pick up back in 2020. We might have a thing where it's like we've discovered life, or the evidence of life on Europa, or the evidence of ancient life on Mars. So life does exist everywhere. But
there's also in Pleiades. There's so many places.
Enceladus. Yeah, so I mean, you have all these different places where life could arise, and so you have, that could definitely be a thing. But yeah, I do think eventually you're going to get to a point where Battlestar Galactica, I think, is a good metric for this, because I mean, there was no alien life that we discovered. It was mostly to keep the drama human centered, rather than kind of getting distracted with like world shattering, culture shattering ideas. But I think you can still do that with just like microbes, where it's like you're not seeing like a Horta, you're not seeing like the Mugatu, you're just seeing like something very simple and easy to kind of quantify.
The thing that was so amazing about that, I knew they pretty much were going to discover life, but the fact that they discovered life that was methane based, which shows, like they said, it was, and I think a lot of people don't understand the ramifications of that. If you have, like, we're carbon based, but methane based is an entirely different. There's a whole different life chemistry there, which does mean that life can pretty much happen anywhere.
There was a bit of a scientific mistake with that, because methane is also carbon based, so they should have said not methane based but water based.
Well, no, I think the idea is that they're this life uses methane as a solvent, whereas humans use like more like we use water as a solvent.
Yeah.
I mean, Project Hail Mary was kind of saying that,
Okay.
like Ryland Grace's whole idea was that life can exist without water, and so when he was proven wrong, and the astrophage is completely water based, there was that whole thing. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's that.
But it's just it's just and that shows the potential too, like you're saying, Robert. Even if we even if we don't get aliens per se, but you've got that spark there. You've got that potential that's always in the back that we're striving to be interstellar or not just Earth-based civilization, which as Elon is saying, we've got to branch out in the future. And I just love that focus of the show, that it's not a, people keep saying, oh, it's a Star Trek prequel. It's it's not, but it's kind of just showing what the evolution of engineering and technology. And maybe 500 1,000 years from now, maybe we'd get to that where we'd have faster than light drive. But this show is grounded, and it's that alternative history, which I love too. And and the characters are so just so well done. The sacrifice. At the end, to say, I'm gonna, send you two back, and I'm gonna stay as Kelly as the commander. Do you think she felt guilty about setting the course to land on Titan and not telling anyone? And then, as part of she said, well, that was my decision, and now I'm going to take responsibility.
I don't think she felt guilty until she saw Walt's reaction to it, and how he was reacting the way he did. So.
But she had to roll that hard 6 as her dad told her, and that's what she did. She would have made him proud with that decision. I was only upset that she never told him, and she ends up dying still not having told him that it wasn't his fault.
But from a writing perspective, what I loved about it from a literary perspective is that she made a mistake. It might not have been a mistake, but she made a call on her own that the others weren't privy to, and in a way she had to atone for that because she put them in that position. So for her to accept responsibility, like if you told Walt what she did, like here's what I loved. She, as many great Star Trek characters have done, they bet on themselves, they took a course of action, it paid off, but it had consequences, and she took those consequences. And she did it herself, but she accepted her fate, and I think that was a great call. And then, because if Walt had known this, it would have sidetracked it's people that make the tough calls to make those kinds of leaps where she was able to make this incredible discovery. And why taint that? She made a call for 10 years. She'd been banging away on Mars looking for life, and she'd put in the time, and then she made the call because she didn't have any other choice. If she didn't make that call, that would have betrayed her character.
She would
have been selfish. She would have, you would have viewed her character as.
It calls back to what.
She would have made the same mistake her dad did.
And she had that wonderful ending too, going into that pool with the bioluminescence. And as a scientist and a researcher, that was the dream of her life. And she left that beautiful message to Alex. But that's the great explorers and the great people that give us a leap forward. You risk, we're in the risk business, right? As Captain Kirk said.
The risk is part of the game if you want to sit in that
chair. You can't advance anything without taking a risk, right? And she, I wouldn't say paid the price, but she, as you said, Robert, there were consequences to her actions, and that was true to her character too. As a Baldwin, she wouldn't make someone else pay for that decision.
Right. Cinematically, that scene was beautiful, but then what about? We're always worried about contaminating Europa, and she just wandered right in there. So hopefully,
I thought about that too.
Well, we can forgive some things.
Yeah, but the little organisms. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
I think there's a scene where they talk about it. I think in season 3, where everyone's people who change the world are selfish pricks, and so it kind of calls back to that thing where she's got to be herself. She's got to be that selfish, but for selfish and selflessness in a way where it's like she has to make this call, which is ultimately going to lead towards something of a scientific breakthrough possibly, and she's kind of betting all of it.
And whatever that bioluminescence was too, it's not just microbes that are floating around. There's more what I'm really curious is that will we, humanity, find a use for that life? Like, is there something on the planet within the, because we don't really know what it is other than the fact there's something alive there. But what is that life going to somehow be able to interact with humanity in some way? I don't mean like intelligence,
that
but
it's
like,
not intelligent, but just as something that we can harness, or
yeah. I mean,
Astrophage.
bioluminescence, there's some kind of energy there. And is there a propulsion system to be had? Like, what's there?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're gonna
that would
use it as
be
astrophage.
like Project Hail
Yeah.
Mary. That's
Spin
an
drives.
interesting idea.
Yeah.
You do know that the corporations on For All Mankind will absolutely figure out how to use it if they can, and what it can mean in that
because the
sense.
race to find life, right? The other spaceship, the other the other country ship, bounces off Titan and heads into gets destroyed. But what was, why did they have to find life? So we're going to find out, I guess, in this season, what, as Robert's saying, what are the implications of that discovery? Because that was a big, huge plot thread of the season, finding that discovery first. And then you assume that's going to be the next big, discovery that sets us off on another tangent or another direction on the show.
Well, that's another thing. I don't know if they'll get into because then you have to go back to Earth. But now that there's absolute proof that life exists elsewhere, the very basis, it's like the Copernican, it's what happened when Copernicus figured out that the Earth was not the center of the universe. So suddenly you have the humanity has to look at itself and go, oh, we're not the center of the universe, which means that how do we view our God and how do we view where we came from? And if now we realize that there's a different form of life in our own solar system, what does that say about the very basis of our beliefs? And how do we deal with that? I mean, I love the fact that there's the word ontological being thrown around. Like, if we discover alien life, that there's going to be an ontological shock if we knew what's going on and what humanity is. And to me, it's like, look, I don't care if aliens are harvesting or using my body to harvest consciousness. Maybe that's all humanity is for, but my life matters to me. So just because there's not, if I'm not going into some great afterlife and my only purpose in the universe is to have my consciousness harvested upon my death to be used by other beings to do something that wouldn't bother me. But humanity would have to come to grips with that. What if there is no afterlife? What if there's no God? We can barely have that discussion on this planet without wanting to kill the person who brings up the topic.
Yeah. So it's the ramifications of that. Yeah, that changes the whole basis of civilization. I grew up Catholic, and you learn the creation, 7 days, and and you assume that we're the only life. But when you look at it scientifically, was it Einstein and some scientists said, the more you unlock the mysteries of the universe, you think that there's a creative hand behind everything with all the rules. The more you see how the universe works, and it's too vast to comprehend, but that would shake the foundations of all the religions on Earth.
Some religions try to get ahead of it, and I think one of the popes said that they believe that there is life on other.
I think there's actually like a Catholic encyclical now, where it's like they've allowed for space in the teachings to at least be open to the idea that if there is a discovery of alien life or disclosure of it, that there's a place where we can kind of have that conversation, or at least reconcile the faith with this now unprecedented new reality, whatever that is.
Yeah, they don't have to be separate. Science and religion can be together.
Yeah, I mean,
eventually.
But some people don't like that,
they can coexist.
At one point, I was more of a militant atheist, but these days I'm sort of like, I'm trying to approach this as like what Carl Sagan in the book and the movie Contact was saying, where it's like, it's absolutely possible for science and faith to coexist without trying to, kill each other. So I think it's a beautiful message in that movie and the book.
I agree.
I think so. It's just a matter of how we talk about it. But that's what I'm hoping for season 6, is that we're not Earth-centric and not even Mars-centric, because it's great that we got Mars independence and everything, and maybe Earth is going to get its act together and not be so rude, and eventually, even if this isn't a Star Trek prequel, I'm not saying I want the Federation of Planets, but it would be nice. There was something that Kelly said at the very end that gave me some hope that we might get that. And she said, where is it? I've got it over here. She said something.
Oh, Jill clicked the wrong thing. Yeah, I've done that before, right? We've all.
This you, once considered enemies, might just be who you need the most.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, ultimately, we're going to be people from Earth, and that's the. I think if you think about how our civilization, I've always tended to believe that the way, say, our genetics work in 1,000 years, as we've started to travel all across the planet, eventually humanity will optimize itself. Everybody will intermix, and our genetic structures will become the strongest will prevail. And then we can go be an interstellar race. And if we meet other people, they're not going to be concerned with the differences that we perceive amongst ourselves. They're only going to know us as people from Earth. They're not going to be like, what color are you? What is your religion? They're not going to care. They're just going to be like, oh, you guys are from Earth, right? I think about the movie Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh,
when George Papard plays the character of Cowboy.
Yeah, he's like, I'm from Earth.
Yeah, he goes, you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Cowboy, Gavin hopes to get ray guns in season 6. That's his hope.
Maybe.
What do you guys think is going to happen with the relationship with Dev and Alex? And
he's got to go. Bye.
Do you think that's going to? Do you think that's going to be healed, or what? Because Dev basically, he says, we had the right people on Mars all along. So you wonder what's going to happen with the development of the city.
It makes no sense to me that he didn't see that beforehand. But whatever the case is, that he's the closest thing that Alex has to family member right now with his mom dead. And so, yeah, that's definitely
his grandpa, gone too. So, Dev is going to be that surrogate father figure regardless. And whatever that means. It seems like there's already sort of there's a respect there from the beginning of the season, even up to the end. Because at the end of the day, they didn't have any interaction until that moment at the finale where they were actually able to converse and have that conversation where it was like Dev admitting that he was wrong for like the first time in the season, and then recognizing that he has to, make that change. And I think that's hopefully going to lay the seed. I don't think Dev has been completely forgiven. I think we're at like a partial redemption here, and we'll see how that kind of.
Well, I think there's two, and there's also Miles and his daughter.
Yeah,
his daughter knows, and I think you've got two. What I've always loved about this show is it always errs on the side of humanity. It doesn't go into some cynical realm where people, even my favorite Russian bad girl, kind of came around with Aleda at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And but in this, you've got Miles is going to have to probably come clean to his daughter, or that's going to, I know we're taking a 10-year jump. So what I love about that is we don't have to see it happen. We see the results of it. And it could be that both of these characters have to learn that life is messy. And when you're trying to do things, it's a continuum. I always say there's at every moment, at any one moment, there's both the worst thing and the best thing that can be happening, and everything in between. And it's all happening at once. And we tend to think about only the things that are happening in our lives. But if you think about the fact that Miles and Dev were doing things and they had all these other concerns, and you're hammering them down on certain mistakes that they made. But what about the other 100 things they did that weren't mistakes? And how did they benefit? And we usually get caught up in the thing that matters most to us. But what about me? What happened to me and how I feel about this? But you have to look at that someone else is existing in their own continuum, and we can be mad about one thing on that continuum. But is their life overall worthy? Or they?
Of course. With Dev, he's the reason that the For All Mankind universe has fusion power.
Exactly.
There's a lot of amazing things that he's done, and I've liked him. all 4 seasons, but this season they tried to put him in the villain category, just putting him
Well, I
to
mean,
blowing up the dome and accidentally killing Gulsara, and
yeah.
there was that.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
I
think
was never really convinced that he would stay in that position, but I was curious to see how they would square that whole thing where it's, doing what he did is pretty unforgivable. But I mean, if it would have just stayed that way, but I feel like they're setting him up for like a very interesting arc going into season 6, because not only do we have all this other context for him, but we now have these like new threads that we didn't have before, where it's like now Dev is going to be, not only that surrogate father, but he's going to be sort of a founding father of this whatever. Maybe Maru doesn't happen quite the way he said it would, but some version of it does take shape, and we're able to see that next season.
I would
Oh, I
imagine.
don't think he's giving up on his Lego set. They did that joke twice this season.
Well, he did give up on Calypso, which is like his version of Starship, because
That's true.
made that happen. But I think the way he had originally his original plans for it will eventually, it's going to morph into something a little bit different, but it's going to essentially have the same shape and the same kind of goal. But instead, it'll be offered to, and I think it's probably better because we brought this up too a few episodes ago, where it's like terraforming takes a long time, and we don't necessarily have the luxury of having like a Blue Mars situation this soon. So having that little thing in like miniature is doable and good enough for me. So yeah,
and I think that Dev justified his decision kind of in a Spock-like way too, with destroying that the habitat. He said, "Well, all the logical parameters said that no one was supposed to be there, right?" He's trying to explain it away.
Yeah,
like,
right. He said, "I did all the
almost
permutations. It should have been okay."
Almost like the Gallo 7, which is probably my favorite Star Trek episode, where Spock's in command and he makes all the logical choices, but they don't always work out. And I love that about his character, because he's not trying to be evil there, or he's trying to move forward and get his goal, and the consequences again of that action of not realizing they're gonna have a birthday party, and when he says, "Oh, Alex was there," because he's so attached to Alex.
It's interesting that there's a parallel with that, with the Marzies intending to blow up the docking port on Kuznetsov station, where it's like they didn't expect for the Marines to be there when they did it.
That's why it's such a smartly written show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so now they both had blood on their hands just equally. And I'd like
the Marzies wantonly committed murder.
Yeah.
I mean, they flat out killed the military command structure.
Well, but that was after the Marines
Yeah.
had massacred as many as possible. And I do want to say hello to Penny in the chat.
Yep.
She says, "I don't have Apple TV." Oh, that would
I'd highly recommend it. How is the show doing ratings wise? I mean, some in the chat
I've
mentioned
seen it
we're
in the
actually
top 5 recently.
we're actually getting
when I go
6 seasons
scroll, it's still there.
of a show that like it did not cancel. You get so many Netflix shows that get canceled after 1 or 2 seasons. I guess maybe
doesn't care, though.
Apple doesn't care, right? Which is
they
good.
don't. I mean, what's interesting about Apple is they're small. If you look at their numbers, they're small. I think that I can't believe Star City exists, and I can't believe how good it is after 3 episodes, 4 episodes.
I haven't seen it yet.
We're going into the 4th one tomorrow.
I've been blown away how incredible that show is.
Where do they start with that show, Robert? Is it the
right after they've landed on the moon?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you deal with the ramifications of that, and then you see their first female astronaut, and I think the show is incredible. The acting in a way, it's, I mean, if this show, what's incredible is you can watch. I can't wait till this season's done, because I'm going to go back and watch season 1 of For All Mankind and do interstitial watches. Yeah, because it's amazing. It's so well made, and I just absolutely love.
So
they're
tying things. They're tying things in now. I'm guessing, or you with events and.
I mean, it's very subtle how they're threading everything through, but you can tell that it is still For All Mankind's universe, even if it is from the Russian perspective. It's definitely, some people online have been kind of complaining, this is depressing. I'm like, it's the Soviet Union in the early 70s. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a genius. The casting, to see young Sergei and what's her face, I mean, to see her journey. What's that?
Is Irina there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's one of the main characters, and you're seeing her as a young woman and where she's, and they don't really make, you have to, you know, when you're first watching, like it took me a minute to be like, oh, that's Sergey.
Oh, because you got to,
you know, it's weird too, because the actor has the same mannerisms as the actor who plays him later, and so you're like, he's there.
Yeah, and when they show him in the apron cooking for himself, that's when I'm like, oh wow, you know, it's again.
I'm watching it just because I know Marco's going to be there eventually.
It's so good.
I mean, the thing with that too.
And Apple TV, what does it cost a month? I remember I was watching it, and our subscription lapsed, and my wife is like, we watch all these shows on Apple. I'm like, oh, do you want to wait? She's like, she's like, just do it. Just, just pay for it, because the shows we've been enjoying Shrinking, and Apple's got some wonderful shows, and this is our favorite.
It's doing a lot for science fiction, and I love that it's kind of become a de facto hub for science fiction right now. And I think that, I don't know where things will go in the future, of course, but I think that the fact that they're kind of making For All Mankind a pillar of that is heartening. And I think that, getting back to Star City a little bit too, not to spoil anybody, but there's a last name that pops up in it that I was like, holy crap. We now know who the Russian Baldwins are, and that's the Polivanovs. And we don't know who the governor's mom's going to be, because we're kind of caught between it being Anastasia Belikova, or it's going to be this other person. But that kind of is an interesting thing to kind of see. But no, I think it's threading everything really well, and I'm hoping we get at least another season out of it. It would be nice to see another 5. That way it gets its own little run, and we get to see exactly how it all goes. But time will tell.
It's really well done. It's beautifully shot.
Mm-hmm.
It looks different than For All Mankind. It looks European. I mean, because it was shot in Lithuania. Yeah, and it just looks incredible.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's encouraging.
Really
You'll have to add that to the watch list. Yep.
And along with wanting to see them move beyond Mars and Earth, I did also. I guess we already talked about that. I want to see some of the moon. The moon seems to have been abandoned a bit, but also Mars as a young nation. The progression has been pretty good on that. But I kind of wanted to see a little more of the science stuff on how they build stuff. I don't think, like Philip said, I don't think they're going to terraform, but how do they grow things? Well, and they had crops, but corn. Is that what we're going with? I don't know.
Well, I mean, corn is a very resilient crop, because it literally like removes toxic elements from the soil, and that's part of the problem with the Martian soil is that as it stands now, there's too much perchlorate in the soil itself, so we can't really grow anything at this point. At least anything we could consume immediately. But
I know they do have a hydroponics room, because we saw what.
I'm kind of wondering what the horticulture situation is going to look like, because I don't think Ed was the only one growing illicit things on Mars. But yeah,
well, they're going to have tech advances, I guess, with that too. You would think so. That would be part of the show. Maybe they'll discover where that life that they discovered. Maybe that'll tie into who knows.
Is it up to Alex to keep that strain alive? I'm sorry.
What did you guys think of the death of our favorite Baldwin?
Oh yeah,
really sad. But
I thought that was an incredible episode of TV.
Yeah, but it was well done. And I think those last 3 episodes, I was telling Jill offline that it almost made a phenomenal movie. Like if you'd piece those together, that
the last 4 actually.
Yeah, it was just really just wonderful action drama, and then you've got Danny Stevens' daughter as
Bad Danny's daughter.
Bad Danny's daughter. Then you find out that in the finale, then she's using the Stevens name again. But you really care about these characters, like it was not to get it too much into Star Trek, but watching Starfleet Academy, I'm like, I could care less if some of those characters got blown away. Don't want to digress too much, but these characters, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe Kelly's gonna die here, and she's gonna take account for this decision. They're not gonna have just some magical way to save her, or some people are speculating the luminescence was gonna save her, put her in suspended animation.
This isn't that kind of show.
No,
right.
It's not.
Yeah,
I think people need to stop that.
That was in my
Yeah.
notes, Mark. Is that I was one of the idiots who suffered through watching every episode of Starfleet Academy, and this is a much better representation of kids growing up and having ambition and doing things
And consequences. Like Alex shoots one of his best friends, right, in the hallway there, and he's going crazy.
Horrifying.
He can't believe that and the humanity, and showing the horrors of war and the consequences of what they're doing. They want to be free, but it's not a show that walls over that, the effects of what happened. So
the juxtaposition of the two shows, I mean, if you want to see how far Star Trek has really fallen.
Well, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I would hope Star Trek starts to resemble, at least in broad strokes, not exactly like a one-to-one, but just like the storytelling quality of For All Mankind eventually. I don't know when will happen.
I'd have been on the wrong microphone for gosh.
Okay. We're not going to get an alien with glitter vomit on For All Mankind.
I think I swallowed my comm badge. I mean, the funny thing about you need writers that believe in the exceptional nature of human beings, and the people that are creating Star Trek don't believe that. You have to believe that the best and the brightest of any civilization are going to be the people on the edge of the final frontier pushing forward, because if they're not, they're going to die.
Yeah.
And the people in Starfleet Academy or the people that are writing modern Star Trek believe every kid gets a trophy. And that reality of that isn't true.
I think there's something to be said about that, but I also think that at a certain point you do have to recognize that there is an infallibility in humans that makes things interesting. And I think that informs a drama, and I don't think you're discounting that at all. But I do think that you create good drama by making your flawed characters at least have a little. That's one of the reasons why I think Battlestar Galactica did so well and was such a strong drama, was because you didn't have just these people who were the best of the best at what they were doing, but you also had them. They were the only people left for what they had to do. And ultimately, their flaws, like Colonel Ty was like an alcoholic.
Sure, but I mean, everybody, even the best of the best, have flaws.
Exactly.
One of the great Star Trek episodes, The Ultimate Computer, you've got Richard Daystrom, who created the Duotronic circuit. But he's an egomaniac, so he put his own engrams in the M5. And he's still a great man.
Yeah,
but he did something dumb.
And that's what always drove me crazy about the character Tilly on Star Trek Discovery. And she has breakfast with Saru, and she says, "I'm trying to go out of my comfort zone. I had mac and cheese this morning." And they were writing their character like she was going to be a Starfleet captain, and she can't handle eating mac and cheese. And I clipped that. I always play that on my show. It's like, how brain dead are the writers? I couldn't believe it. I'm watching the show that they would actually put those words in a character to say that I'm out of my comfort zone by trying mac and cheese.
Well, I think that there's a
They haven't read books. Those writers don't read.
The thing I want to point out, and going back to the Ultimate Computer, because I made this joke before, when the USSR left the M6, it becomes the M5.
Right.
And well, speaking of mistakes, I had the wrong microphone on for possibly the past hour, but UK Danger Man Repair says Ed's death was superb, but I felt a bit premature. Could have had a few more episodes.
I don't know if I agree. I think that it was perfectly timed, and I think that
I agree with
there were
you.
some people online that were complaining that, like, oh, now I don't have to watch. I'm not going to watch a show anymore because now the whole legacy cast is gone. I'm like, are you even like dedicated to like the show and like the threads that have been like formed from beginning? I mean, what?
And it makes sense that it moves on to a new generation when they're aging. And so
you have to recognize the passage of time. Like people aren't always going to be there forever.
It was tough to lose Kelly, those Baldwins, the same season, but it makes sense as a logical progression on the show. And now it's going to turn to Alex and his friends and the next generation on Mars.
Literally. And so the good thing for next season 6 is that we don't have to do teen drama anymore. Now they're adults.
I like the teen drama. I like those.
It was okay.
But they were teens that were I identified with them and how they were. I mean, they were real people. They weren't. And while they were teenagers, sure, they still acted like I recognized who they were as human beings. I just want to say something really quick. I watched the first 8 episodes of the season as review copies months before it aired. And in the 3rd episode, when the end credits were all over the shot of Gemini, the Gemini capsule, Gordo's and and Ed's capsule. And I said, I really hope that when they put this on Apple, they don't reduce the shot. You know how the credits get reduced and it goes into the corner? They didn't. If you watched, I was waiting, they let the shot play. Because if you want to know how smart this show really is, to go back to that Gemini mission, or Gemini as people call it, and to show that alone, I get chills, because I'm a huge real space fanatic, and to see that they took the time to do that, what an amazing way to end that episode. I mean, if you need to understand what good hands we are in with the producers of this show, that shot told me everything I needed to know. The fact that they just let it linger, the awe and wonder and the beauty of it all, and then to bring back those actors, all the actors, the cameos of everybody.
Well, here's how good the show is. I want to see Lily's completed film that Gosora started.
I thought that they were going to do something with that.
Yeah, we didn't get that, but
it makes it feel like they're saving it for next season.
Yeah,
or it could be part of a memorial. Or when they do those flash forwards, maybe it could be they'll mention a documentary made by slain Martian youth, or some. I love those flash forwards. They're just so, especially the alternate history when you see. So I can't wait to see that next flash forward to see how
we're kind of seeing the beginnings of Martian culture emerge, because Gosora did her movie, sort of like a stereotypical student film, and then you have I think the character's name was Ollie on that station somewhere where he's having a song, and I'm thinking to myself, I kind of feel like that song's going to come back again next season, where that's going to be how we end it, because we don't know what I mean. We ended this season with Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, and there's no things ahead of that in terms of we can't anticipate what the future's music's going to be, but I think that song might come back at the end of that. Might be the jumps song we hear.
And it wouldn't surprise me if we find out that Dev financed the finishing of that documentary and it became a big box office hit on Earth.
Yeah, because he finds the camera and they have that scene where he's looking at the camera, staring at it, and then when he plays the film and starts to cry.
And not just that could also be a big move towards diplomacy, where the Earth people on Earth see this documentary and realize that they all need to be together and everything. And so, but also,
well, I was gonna say real quick, the Martians are portrayed as terrorists on Earth, right? And it's your point of view or your perspective, so they're just getting one side of the story, especially with all communications are shut down, and we're rooting for these characters, and we know that this is totally wrong. And you see those reports on Earth, and you're kind of yelling at the TV like, that's not true. You can't say that about these kids and these people that are on Mars. And just more great writing. It's really thoughtful how they develop the world and all the characters. That's how it would happen, right? You would have, the governments on Earth and the media would only portray it potentially, one way.
Yeah.
Well, we did this thing where, at least I did this thing where at the very, very end, there's a newspaper article where it says President Miles Dale. And in the entire article, they mention no specifics of what the name of this new Martian republic or whatever it might be. And I find that very interesting. I don't know. We have a flag. We know that much.
Right.
But we don't know what its
got an
name
apple
is.
tree. It's got an apple tree on it. I like that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And
that's the first thing when I fired up season 5. I said they better do something with the tree, and they did. And so I knew I was in for a good time at that moment.
I don't know if it's going to just be called like the Happy Valley Republic, or it might be like the Free Martian Republic or something. Some people in the fandom are still insisting that it's going to be the Martian Congressional Republic, but I don't think we're going there. But ultimately, I think the thing that would be interesting to see next season would, because we're getting back to the science, I still think the moon ants have evolved into something really weird, because it's now been almost 50 years that they've been just like roaming around the moon. So what, I did some chat GPT stuff where I was like, what would that look like? And then it gave me something really bizarre. So I don't know if they'll go that way.
We're not going to get giant radioactive ants, are we?
No, it seems like we're going to get
them on Mars, right? Yeah.
Well, the
I always think about those ants too. You're not alone.
It seems to think
but life
that
finds a way, right? I mean,
they'll be as big as potato bugs and they'll look translucent. And I'm like, that would be really weird to see. I don't think we're actually going to get that rendered. It might just be like a tiny article in the beginning of the season where it's like moon ants infestation, is going on like Armstrong Station or something. And then
well, you'd have rats probably would make their way, across, rats always get into everything, right? Rats and mice, they get into a container and boom, you wonder. I mean, I don't think we're going to get a big tangent on that, but that's an interesting, it could end up being a problem though, too, right? Get into the food supply or, something scientific that they could weave in because look at, us on Earth, all the invasive species that are, all over. Like I'm involved with scouting, and a lot of the service projects are trying to remove invasive species from the parks, and because now we're so connected throughout the world that it just takes one little bit, to invade, and that's the other thing too. What I was kind of half speculating, like when it was joking, like when the astronaut, I'm forgetting her name, when she had the axe went through her leg, and she got. I said, well, she could have been contaminated by these creatures of these life forms, right? And we're
Elena,
thank you. We're speculating like what, maybe she's going to get sick or something's going to happen. We didn't get that yet, but what's the implication too of this life if it contaminates humanity or vice versa? So that would have been that's an interesting potential.
Could still happen
next season.
Well, I was
Phantom
thinking
Outsiders
here.
Hello, Phantom.
I don't think they were going to go the alien route, but it would be interesting to see where, because it seems like they're portraying Titan very differently. We talked about this too a couple episodes ago, where it's like they portray Titan not as it is in reality, and we think that might be just an artistic choice. Because if you think about it, like Titan looks kind of orange or like amberish, and then Mars looks kind of reddish brown. So side by side, and like if you're not really like keen on like paying attention, they could look similar. But I don't know if I quite buy that, because I mean, we know Kelly and company are on Titan, so that would be kind of our brain telling us, okay, we're on Titan, and then everything happening on Mars is obviously on Mars. So
that's one of the artistic licenses this season took, was that they didn't want to make Titan the way that we've discovered Titan looks. They just made it blue instead, and so that's a strange choice. But I want to say goodbye to Brogu. Enjoy the rest of the stream. Yeah, thank you. Gotta go. He's got to go. Bye.
But there's so much potential there too, right? That's what and now that we're caught up in our time, basically in our timeline, they've got to speculate, politically where things are going to happen. But if they've been doing that all along too, with the alternate, futures. I mean, Bush becomes, just a vice president, right? Al Gore becomes president. I love, Ted Kennedy becomes president because Chappaquiddick happened the weekend that we landed on the moon. So Chappaquiddick doesn't happen in this universe, and he becomes president. It's just brilliant history knowledge that these guys, these writers have.
Absolutely. And then they've set up a JFK Jr. presidency, and the implication is that he's running in 2012, which would imply that he's going to be at the end of his 2 terms in 2020.
Sure.
So what does that mean? So how is his relationship going to be with Miles, who's now the president, or at the end of maybe his tenure as president of Mars? So you have these interesting political threads that are emerging right now. And then Polivanov in Russia. So.
Yeah, definitely can't wait for that first montage for season 6. That's going to be good.
Yeah, I think JFK Jr. would have eventually become president. That's just my speculation, if he hadn't tragically died in that plane crash. But that it makes sense in this universe, right? If Teddy Kennedy was president, that he would become, kind of like the Bush family, in a way. You would say that would make sense. But I'm just so interested to see how things go with the discovery, the spaceship in the end, with the discovery at the end of the episode, the Stevens, Avery Stevens, showing her name. I just can't wait to see. And I think it's as you said, Robert, it's halfway through production. So wasn't there much longer jump between? We had to wait much longer for this 5th season.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
It was 2 years.
And I'd spoken to I spoke to Ron Moore at the Star Trek in Vegas last year, and he was telling me that they had some negotiation issues with Apple, and I'm sure a lot of it had to do with Star City and this, and they I think they wanted to get more of a budget for the end of the last 2 episodes. I think he didn't really go into detail, but it makes sense. I was like, I wonder why. Well, with all the extras and all the military and all the cool standing sets that they've expanded on, and I think that with Apple, they just want to make the problem is Apple is not an entertainment company. They're a tech company. Yeah. And Apple exists in order to, you're supposed to watch their shows on Apple devices. I mean, that you don't have to, but their economics are not necessarily, have never been defined by viewer numbers, because they know that their platform is smaller anyway. But it's still expensive to make shows, so somebody has to justify the money. But obviously, the fact that a show like For All Mankind, which even amongst the science fiction fans of the world, I'm still evangelizing to get people to try and watch the show, and people are like, I try watching, it's boring. I'm like, okay, I don't understand, and I guess it's because as a space freak myself, like when they started the female astronaut program, I'm like, oh, it's like the Mercury 13, but they're doing it now for real. Most people today don't even know there was a brief moment where Americans had a female astronaut program.
Well, and I only know that because it's in the show. Essentially, Molly is based off of one of those people who was in that program.
Well, the thing is, I think you need to have a cursory interest in both alternative history, but also our own history, because how they're playing against what actually happened is also so interesting. But that requires a certain level of intelligence on the part of the audience. And I think this show asks you to meet it halfway. This show assumes the audience is smart. And I love that about the show. Yeah. And a lot of people say to me, and it also, in terms of what it does for progressive topics, whether it's race issues, whether it's LGBTQ issues, this show is incredibly smart and deals with those issues because they're part of the fabric of society. We had things like Stonewall happen, but now they and some people have accused this show. I hate it when people say the blanket statement woke, because there's a very specific thing that's referring to, but this isn't like that. This is taking on societal issues in a very realistic, thoughtful way. Yep. And I love that about the show.
Yeah, the whole Elaine Wilson presidency and coming out as, a gay character, because, we grew up with, the whole, marriage equality and, Obama saying he wasn't for gay, marriage equality. And then, he probably was the whole time, but just couldn't say it. But it was so organic to how it came about. And she had the courage too, to, it wasn't an agenda. She's just like, this is who I am. And, and that's what people want to, have this hopeful future where, people are accepted for who they are. And it's just everything is just so polarizing. Like, I like the Mando and Grogu movie. And it was like, I was, not everyone, but, it's like you felt like you're like an outsider. Like, how can you like that? It's like, well, like what you want to like. And, the woke term just gets bandied about. I'm on the more conservative,
that whole thing.
I'm on the more conservative side, but it's almost like become like a slander where, you can have good writing and do things well and still have, as you said, Robert, like a progressive ideal. It's just how it's developed and not thrown in your face, where it's believable to the characters in the show. So when they had that, Elaine Wilson came out on the show, it made perfect sense, because you grew up with her through that show, knowing she had to hide that through, as an astronaut and be in the closet. And you realize too, how many people went through so many horrible things that you don't realize too, or, until you see how they lived and how they had to portray themselves or hide what they did. So I thought it was really a wonderful, it wasn't woke. It was just good writing.
Okay, that's the difference. Yeah. You can address any issues you want if the writing is great.
Yeah, For All Mankind addresses social issues and stuff the way good Star Trek did, where it's not, obviously it's progressive, not woke, which means that nobody's trying to put anybody else down based on their whatever they are. And so
that is a very astute judgment.
Because I mean, the whole series, I mean, from the beginning, like the progressivism in it really comes about incidentally. Like it's not, like we planned this to happen, all this, and it just like from season one, it's like the only reason they went with a female astronaut corps was because they wanted to beat the Russians with that, or at least to have
Right,
to
exactly.
compete with them there. And it's like everything they do progressive wise is just happening around everything else, and so just they kind of happen upon their progressivism instead of like having it be something they planned ahead of time.
Exactly. And another thing that when Danny and Ed got into it, and Ed
Mhm.
played the race card,
Mhm.
I got mad.
Mhm.
I was like, how dare you? How
Yeah.
dare you? And but Ed was, product of the American military, fought in Korea.
Mhm.
But when he said that, it showed that people are fallible. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a really smart thing to do for Ed. It really made me hate him for that minute,
Mhm.
and then the fact that him and
Yeah.
Danny had that ongoing relationship still.
Yeah, I
And there
mean,
was
but eventually
fascinating.
they talked it out,
Yep.
and
Well, I
and
mean,
that's what worked.
because you're talking about the one that happened in season 2 or 3.
Yeah, 3, I think.
Yeah, 3, because that's right before they go on to Mars. That's what split them. But yeah, they have another argument last season, and he doesn't even bring anything up race wise. It's just she's attacking him because he knows that he has all these like fallible traits, and it's like you always do this thing, and you're constantly giving up things for other people, and you're not really thinking things through, and like he doesn't even bring any of that up in that confrontation, and he actually kind of internalizes it, and then he just kind of goes off to be old man Mars for a little bit. But it's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he does have that fight with Alex. That was something over the spaghetti dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Baldwin spaghetti dinners. But and Danny is just
Mhm.
such another well-written character, right? She's not just the token or there, all these characters.
Yeah, good
And
Danny. Yeah.
and they develop and they progress and they have ups and downs yeah, it's just an amazing writing core that they have here, because so much of the TV we're getting today is just so terrible. There's fantastic TV too, but a lot of it, especially in the sci-fi, if you're getting back, like Star Trek and what's happened with that, it's just
What's embarrassing compared to something like this, at least
Yeah.
in terms of how the
Mhm.
characters are written.
Yeah, look what they
and,
did to the
well,
Gorn. With some of my favorite, the Gorn. I
yeah,
mean, just how they
right.
destroyed the character of the Gorn,
Terrible.
and it's just not understanding
Yeah.
what
They've
understanding
committed a
the
sin
character.
that the Berman Trek committed, where it's like you've made a historically like scary villain into nothing. Because they did that with the Borg in the Berman era, where it's like you've done it so much to now they're not what they were to the audience, and so I guess that's what they were. I don't think they were intending to do that, but that's unintentionally what they ended up doing.
Well, there's a big
And
difference between going from a big scary just one amorphous, not as individuals, and then I kind of excuse the Berman era Borg turning that way because they put Hugh in there, and I think Hugh might have introduced individuality into the Borg, which is why
yeah,
we get a Borg queen later,
but
and
that's why
that's
it's so
the way
weird
I had
because
to
I mean,
canon that. But
yeah,
going from an intelligent captain who can go up against Captain Kirk, and then just in Utrecht, just turning them to straight xenomorphs is way different
Well,
and inexcusable.
what I don't understand too about that is, when I was a kid, Arena really meant something to me. Like I learned from that episode because it makes you bloodthirsty and you want to see Kirk kill the Gorn. And then there you go. Is that the X06 figure?
No, this was Diamond. I think Diamond
Oh yeah, that's a
Select,
good
but
figure.
it's a pretty good figure though. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Nice.
what I found so interesting too is, the Gorn were portrayed as wronged in that episode. That was the whole point. At the end, you Kirk has a revelation about it, and even the Gorn captain's like, "Look, man, we're stuck in this situation. One of us has to die, and I'll make it quick and merciful for you." Like
Yeah.
he's literally saying, "I'm bigger than you. Eventually, I'm going to get to you," and he even makes Kirk an offer.
Yeah.
And what they've done, if you want to see how terribly stupid the writers are in modern Star Trek, by doing what they've done with the Gorn, because they were looking for, first of all, the idea they had to have some recurring big bad is ridiculous. But they never have taken Star Trek seriously. The problem with with Strange New Worlds, it could have been great. You've got a cast that could have been great, but they never take it seriously. The writing staff. They're never inside the universe. They're always outside the universe. There's always something, and they've never written a universe that you buy into. And what's the people that like the show, I don't begrudge anybody that loves it, because it superficially feels like classic Star Trek, but there's no conviction there. There's no sincerity. So the universe itself is never believable. Whereas in For All Mankind, they create a reality and they stick to that reality and they make you believe in it. Whereas modern Star Trek, the writers don't know how to do it. And it's frustrating to watch.
Yeah, everything's a joke, and they're cheering on the bridge, and like or her was jumping up and down when she does something right. It's like, or her would never do that, or you're expected to do your job. You wouldn't. You maybe have a reaction, but you wouldn't. Be. There just have to. Everything has to be so.
She'd be worried about what she's got to do next.
Yeah, everything is so emotional, and all the quips and the jokes and not taking that world seriously, because why didn't they just make another alien race that's a xenomorph? I mean, it's not the Gorn anyway, so what? It's just a member berry to use that name.
And that's exactly why. That's all New Trek knows how to do, is because, like Robert said, they're outside of the universe. All they can think of is, the fans want just old stuff, so we're gonna shoehorn this in there and make it ours. And
I mean, it's the same thing that Star Wars is suffering with right now, with like the overt fan service. And I think actually Robert and John Campea covered this, I think, a day or two ago, where you guys were talking about how the whole thing with Star Wars is that, like Dave Filoni is kind of this opinion where, he didn't like Andor, or didn't like, wanting to like explore the harder parts of the franchise. And I think he was even against Starfighter, becoming a thing. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but the parallels between what's going on in modern Star Trek and Star Wars is very weird, but it's tied to the same problem, which is the corporatization of science fiction.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about For All Mankind is it comes from $1 trillion market cap company, and yet it's not suffering from the same things that those two shows are.
But the thing
because it allows the creators, because it allows Ronald D. Moore to create what he wanted to make. And
I think Apple is just more, they don't keep the leash on them as much.
But Apple is making a future. Apple is a company that requires innovation and thinking out of the box, and people that really know what they're doing. And they're the ones, their products created this $1 trillion market cap. So they understand, whereas a corporation like Disney, the people in it are fearful of the very company they work for. They're afraid of messing up. They're afraid of doing something wrong, of pissing off their immediate boss. Whereas the tech companies, the irony is the tech companies were the companies that they're the companies they are because they were innovators. They were disruptors. They did things out of the box. And I think that what For All Mankind has done, and what look, when I first watched Foundation, I was not into it, man. I'm like, this is not, but it's become a great show. And is it a great adaptation of Asimov? Maybe not, but I do think as a show in its own right, it's gotten quite good.
Yeah, no,
I haven't watched that. You'd
like...
recommend it? You'd recommend it then? Foundation.
I think we both probably would.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'll have to watch that.
I think that. I mean, I wasn't expecting like a 1-to-1, because I mean, after all, Foundation was like written. The first iteration was like right after World War II.
Yeah,
and then the subsequent ones came afterwards. So like, I'm not expecting a 1-to-1, especially since there's stuff in those books which have not aged well, because we know technology has advanced more than that. I mean, there were some things I would have preferred that they kept in, because there's no Encyclopedia Galactica really in the new show, and I would have wanted a little bit more of that. But as I think it's the best kind of thing we could have gotten, and whatever that means, I think it's become a show where dive into it, see what you think. It might be a little bit challenge, like a little bit more like first couple seasons are a little rough, but once you get over that, I think you'll be pleased with it.
Yeah, we were mentioning Disney before. Yeah, look at the innovation that Disney used to have, right? I mean, think of Walt Disney, the first full-length feature, film Snow White and all the technological innovations. They had a form of surround sound for Fantasia that they put in theaters, and they're always advancing, advancing, advancing. When Walt was there, Epcot is experimental prototype community of tomorrow. My dad was also kind of a Disney nut too, with the technology and being an engineer and all how they created everything and how Disney World is basically in Florida, it's built on top of a second floor, so they can have all the trucks and everything go underneath, so you don't see that. It's just so innovative, and it's sad to see how it's developed now, and they're not taking those risks anymore. And
the thing is, I think that the problem with modern times is that we're no longer convinced that there is a future, or at least the culture itself. They think that there is no future, and envisioning the post-future future, if you will, like, what does that mean? Because we're kind of going back to the well. We're kind of like, oh, let's do these retro futurist ideas and let's kind of just paste a aesthetic onto something else and like call it the future. Like,
that's sad.
What is the future actually going to be at this point in time, 2026, America, Europe, whatever it is? I think that there needs to be people envisioning that future, or else we will have no future. Because I do believe that when you portray these things, when you envision these things, they might not happen exactly the way you predicted or the way you anticipated, but you have to have an idea in your mind's eye of the future, or else you will have no future. And I think that's the death knell of a civilization.
I think you're absolutely right. We have had our own civilization has been turned against itself. By social media was the delivery system of a contagion that was created in a lab by bad actors that know that the only way you can take down the West is by destroying it from the inside. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You can chart this. You can look at it, whether you're talking about Qatari money that's been poured into academia for the last 25 years, you can look and see that our civilization is being dismantled from within. And the fact that America is as polarized as it is on its 25th or 250th birthday, I mean, one day I think they should start a government commission, because you can track all of this. There was a great documentary about online influence. I forget what the name of it was, but I think it came out like 2018 or something. And it talked about algorithms and things like this. But half of our own civilization thinks the West is this horrible, terrible place to be, as if we're not the most, as if the West has not liberated and advanced humanity farther than it's ever been. But yet we have a civilization of people, and half of our young people think that we're a bunch of terrible people and that we're the most oppressive, horrible.
Wow. That's way different from how I grew up, thinking that I was the luckiest person on
Me
earth
too.
to be in
Well,
America.
when I was teaching, I mean, it was kind of interesting, because one of the classes I actually had the privilege of designing and making from beginning to end was a class on literary tyrants. And so
I gotta say goodbye to UK Danger Man. Really love to see you here today. He has to go now. Love the stream. Great to see you all. Will you be streaming Friday, UK Danger Man? Hope to see you soon.
You can always see us on the replay.
He says,
Take care.
R&B, great to see you on Jill's channel. Again, proper gentleman.
Thanks
Take
for the
care.
kind words. I appreciate that.
Yeah, like the National Suze is kind of, is a polarizing figure. We did that movie documentary, America, a World Without Her, and it was pretty illuminating to watch. I mean, you might not agree with, all of his thesis, but we could just imagine, how we fought against slavery. The British, how they fought wars to end, to end slavery, the scourge of slavery. And it took a lot of lives and blood to do that. And then, and whatever you think of our society, it just doesn't make sense that you'd teach kids and that next generation not to appreciate what they have, and how, in some ways, think of how easy. I think of my great aunt who lived 103, and she told, when she moved into the first house, no running water. There was an outhouse. They had to spend all day doing laundry and and like my grandmother and her sister had skipped a couple of grades. They were so smart, and someone had actually offered to pay for them to go to college, someone that they would sew for, someone who was wealthy. And the family, Italian immigrants, said, well, no, the the oldest boy goes to college. You're a woman. You don't go to college. You have to marry and and take care of the family. And but they were so smart. You know, who knows what, you know, if they had that chance to go to college or what they would be. They skipped grades. They were, you know, they were very smart, but they didn't have that opportunity.
It's kind of the thing that I found interesting when I was teaching these students that are coming up. Because I mean, I was teaching kids that were basically born when I was in high school, and so that's been kind of a weird thing to even experience. But I think by and large, the fact that American education, especially at the K through 12 level, treats students like they're dumb, and then they grow up into dumb people, we're all like, well, why is this happening? And it's like, stop treating them that way. They're, you know, they're smart. They can figure things out. You just have to give them the tools to do so. And you have to have faith in them. You have to invest in them, or else they're going to be what we're seeing today. And they're, you know, they're going to start valuing the wrong things, where it's like, they need to be influencers. They need to be, you know, nobody wants to be an astronaut anymore. And I think that's very bizarre. And I think maybe I'm just too optimistic, or I hope for a future where we can at least maybe not get back to the same things we were inspired by before, but envision something new and different that isn't so.
I think the Artemis program, though, we saw this, how it kind of swept across social media. And I think NASA, the guy who's running NASA now is perfect to run NASA. And if you see, like, they had the previews, they're turning the Artemis 3 mission into a social media event. They're dropping the videos. Here's a teaser for that's coming out tomorrow, where they introduce the crew this morning. They're showing you the whole mission. They're getting people involved. I mean, the problem is, and I hate to say this for somebody who's been on YouTube for 11 years, but you can't be an influencer if you don't know anything.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got these kids thinking that first of all, being on YouTube for any length of time is a grind. And now you're seeing, what I love seeing is, we're seeing it in movie theaters this week with Backrooms and Obsession doing so well.
Yeah.
These are kids that were highly motivated, that went and became filmmakers on YouTube, which means they were putting in enormous amounts of hours and enormous amounts of creative effort in order to make the films that got them noticed. And they made the jump now, and they're making lots of money. These are not people that are saying, look at me. They're achieving success through doing work they're creating something that didn't exist. And I'm hoping that our social media era, I mean, the shock to the system happened really in 2012 when kids started getting smartphones, because they finally migrated down to where you could buy them for not as much money as they were in 2007. But so the social media era probably won't last as long as we thought it would, because it's burning itself out, because it just doesn't work. And the fact that our civilization has become so polarized and everyone's so angry, it doesn't lead anywhere. You can become
that's the fascinating thing about, hey, Lance. Well, that's one of the fascinating things about the whole thing when teaching. It's kind of like, I've noticed that these kids actually hate social media. It's one of the things I've been reading in their essays. And they want to go back to, they're actually, some of what baffled me is that I talk about how the 90s was like the last great decade. And they were telling me that I was insane. And I'm like, no, look at these things and see how everything was. And then after I started showing that to them, they started being more receptive to analog technology, and like, actually, it might be better to go back to that and see how everything was back then, because you don't have the pressures that are on you with social media culture. You have, you know, these analog or digital technologies that just, you know, were stuff I grew up with. And I feel like I had the best of both worlds, because I mean, I think that my life was basically split between pre 9/11 and post 9/11. So it's like everything changed right afterwards. I don't think
I'm not saying we've tangented, but at the risk of getting back on topic, that's one thing for all mankind has avoided was these little the social media. No, it was good. It was a good tangent. All of it was relevant. But I also want to make sure I welcome to the panel Lance from the Outcast Creative, who is here.
Lance. Good to see you all. Good to see you,
How
Robert.
are you doing?
How's it going?
Pretty good. I just actually finished watching episode 3 of Star City.
Star City?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, how are you liking it? I haven't seen
I'm
it
loving
yet.
it. Really good
Yeah,
show. Solid writing, really good performances, and I love all the kind of the parallels to, you know, we already know about the stuff that happened, but then we kind of don't really know how it happened from the Russian perspective. and it's I think it's a really clever show. I'm really enjoying it, and I was listening in earlier when I was working, and somebody mentioned the thing about the character, you know, wearing that same apron and doing the cooking, and
Yeah,
that was you, Robert. Yeah, little details like that are great, and there's lots of those in the show. I think that show's gonna, I don't know if it'll go for 6 seasons, but it's gonna run for a while for sure.
it's just such high caliber. Such high quality.
Yeah.
You know what I love too? I gotta say, there's a shot when something happens on a Soviet space mission when they're coming back to Earth. That actually happened a number of times when something couldn't separate, and it's spinning around, and that was real. And then when it came crashing to the ground, I don't know if it's an effect shot or they actually hung something and dragged it through the tree line. But it was great. You know, you look at this stuff going, wow, this is, and I looked into this too. They did send astronauts into space without spacesuits.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, the Russians were very crazy at what they were doing. And not only that, do you think that what we saw in the recent episode, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, I mean, not really spoiler, but if you saw For All Mankind season 1, you kind of already know what we're talking about. Because in season 1, there was like the CIA had spotted a crashed capsule on the moon, and they said, "Oh, well, one guy must have been there, and they must have died, and nobody knows about it." I don't know if that's what we're seeing in the most recent episode, or if something around then, like we haven't seen the next mission or not.
That'd be so amazing, to see the failed mission that you don't know about, because there's all that alternative history there. The Soviets did try to land spacecraft on the moon, and I think they didn't they land a rover, or not a rover, but just the craft on the moon after the Apollo mission? I'm trying to remember.
No, I think they did. They were launching stuff to Venus and the moon, and I think even Mars. They tried to do Mars, but none of their missions succeeded. And
there's a novel out called The Apollo Murders. I don't know if anybody's heard of that.
That's Chris Hadfield's book.
Yeah, that's right. And that's got some really interesting factual stuff about what the Russians were actually doing, and that they were trying to build. I forget the name of that ship they were trying to build. And it's sort of a big hypothetical about what if in that story, and how one of the Russians ends up being rescued by the Americans in that, because the Russian ship's not working, and stuff like that. But it's all based on factual plans that the Russians actually had, that book, that didn't quite come to fruition, or did they? So
I don't know, but that reminds me, I'm a little bit worried about the ISS. Is anybody else worried about it? Because there was a leak.
They're talking about evacuating the station because of it. I think the Russians' whole thing was like, and I was kind of fascinated by that.
Well,
come on, man,
outlived its life.
Duct tape.
By duct tape.
Yeah, I mean, duct tape in science fiction and in space solves everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of duct tape, Alex with his duct tape, he did his first surgery. Basically, I don't know.
Well, it's triage.
He saved triage.
Well, it made a space. They made a spacesuit, and of course, the funny thing was, I have a buddy that works, subcontractor for NASA, and he knows some of the advisors to the show. And I was saying, why I love that scene where they made the spacesuit out of duct tape, and he's like, they were trying to tell the show like that would never work, but for drama. I'm like, what do you mean, Larry? I'm like, I love that. That episode is so phenomenal, but like, yeah, it's not happening. But
I thought it was great too.
It was great, but he's like, there's the science behind it is, it's a no-go. But that was just so epic,
they didn't
right?
ultimately make it, so there is that.
Yeah, they did ultimately die. Yeah, but I know they made the Stevens
stop the
legacy
reactor from blowing.
Yeah, it worked just enough, and then
yeah. But I just love that the idea of that, and the bravery too to try to do that into that action. So there's just so many great moments. Looking, we're focused on this season, but there's so many great pivotal moments in the show where you're just cheering forward to the tragedies that also happen. So it's I can't wait to see. I've got to catch up to Star City then, and because in this show the Koreans made it to Mars first, right? So
That's right.
that surprise that they're all arguing about who's going to
Leave.
have that first step on Mars, and then it turned out
Get
it was
out
a
of my
moot-
way, you
moot-
commie,
moot-
or something.
It was a
Yeah.
moot. It was a moot point anyway. So that would be. Could you imagine the tragedy of actually making it to the moon first, but dying on the moon, so then the Soviets wouldn't show that because they would have to cover it up because it would look bad.
Well, they'd have to admit that they made a mistake. And it's interesting because the Russians in this entire show, after they got to the moon, have like not succeeded at any point afterwards. They couldn't make it to Mars, couldn't make it to Titan. It's like you kind of feel sorry for them a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, right. They had that first big win, and then afterwards they just the Titan.
That's why I'm hoping Venus happens.
That show that made me cry. That whole episode made me cry. It
was a great episode.
That teaser. But I got to say hello to Matt G in the Twitch side. I got somebody over on Twitch.
Or on Twitch.
All right.
Yeah.
And another thing about this show, about that very thing that you brought up, Jill, that if we were doing if you were talking modern Star Trek, they would have actually cut to that Russian ship. But what was horrifying is that we never got to see those people, and you never got the horror of space travel is sometimes people lose their lives, and all you get is that empty transmission line. And when they were no longer available, there's a singular horror in that. And when you're portraying drama on TV, the consensus probably is that, well, we have to cut and see them, we have to see the peril, we have to see. And they always resist that in For All Mankind. They allow that. I mean, when people get taken out, like the scene when they're rescuing the Russians from the ship in the third season, when the guy gets hit in the face. I mean, in silence, that was just. I mean,
the guy gets crushed. Is that the scene too, where the guy gets?
Oh yeah, that was a female astronaut. She got crushed.
That was hard.
So scary.
Oh man.
Yeah, they lost 3 people on that one. That's crazy.
But that actually forged that relationship between the two of them once the two crews joined together, and but then they still had the conflicts though, right? It wasn't completely smoothed over.
No,
but it was just wonderful. More good writing. Yeah,
I do appreciate the worst that the show doesn't drag these things out either.
Yeah, well, they could have dragged it out because the Russian Titan crew was. Probably didn't die right away. It probably took about a week or so for the radiation or the starvation and everything.
Yeah, and like I've been thinking back to like Apollo 13. There was a blackout when they were trying to get back to Earth for like a minute or so, and and I don't know if this show is hearkening to that, but as you said, it's almost more terrifying sometimes not to see something. Like Jaws works so well because you don't see the shark in the beginning because the shark Bruce didn't work well. But it actually made it a better movie. So it's even more terrifying to just use your imagination and think of the horrible lost souls, and then we'll be with you we'll stay with you. They say paraphrasing, and you don't get that return. You don't get that return transmission. They're gone.
Did have the blackout for the Sojourner landing on Titan, which was great that they included that. Which, of course, they did successfully land, although not where they wanted. Do we think that
there's going to be another space race, or do you think we're done with space races? Because the next planet is Uranus.
I don't think the next season will focus on that. I think it's going to be very subtle stuff about are we alone or not, and not just the microbe thing. I think there'll be more substantive alien contact than that. I think season 6 will end with some sort of signal coming from another civilization. That's where I'd put my money.
Unless we have full disclosure and suddenly For All Mankind will all be moot.
Well, I mean, but it is an alternative timeline already.
It's true.
Funnily enough, I do wonder about that, with whether we would get full disclosure pretty soon, because that's something I really hope happens in my lifetime, and it feels like the world's being positioned for full disclosure. There's all these stuffs coming out, and it's not just dribs and drabs anymore. And plus,
I want to believe.
So
I do too. I want to Fox Mulder this all the way.
Yeah.
I want to see what's under the Great Pyramids, man.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll find out.
Hey,
Soon.
I do have to go because speaking of John Campea, I have to go to John Campea's show. I have to drive 45 minutes to his studio.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay,
Robert,
okay,
if
fair
you,
enough.
keep an eye out on Facebook for a message from Philip A. Leavenworth. I don't know if I've been meaning to reach out to you about like having a one-on-one conversation.
There we go.
Yeah,
don't keep making me big. That's all right. Yeah.
Okay,
Robert, you want me to plug real quick because I got to go too.
Yeah. Plug.
It was great streaming.
If
great
you
to
don't
be
want to
with
be big,
everyone.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
thank you.
Sunday Night Geekery, my weekly show, Sunday night 10:30. Come hang out. We took all things geek and movies and entertainment and divert into food and barbecue. And I always try to enable people to get them to buy stuff that they can't afford. But it was great to stream with everyone. And Robert. And Robert, what is there any way to get Free Enterprise on Blu-ray? I love that. And
I am trying. I really hope that I will. I mean, it's so frustrating to not be able to do that. But our executive producer who owns the movie, who paid for the movie, has not given us access to the film. And I want to do a definitive version of the film and make it the best version that it can be. And there's things I wanted to do with it that we just didn't have. Like, for instance, the Logan's Run dream sequence, that I could add more Logan's Run to it.
Okay.
It was never cut the way I shot it. I shot it to be much more surreal. There's a lot more to it than that. It doesn't need to be much longer, but it could be a lot more interesting than it is.
Okay.
And hopefully I will be able to do that shortly. I mean, it's the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and
it's just such a wonderful movie. And I finally did get the first year, the Hallmark Enterprise. I didn't buy it, and then years later, when I saw that you had that, the girlfriend has the home. I'm like, I've always wanted to get that. I finally scored one on eBay because I didn't buy it, and then of course the Requiem Methuselah line just cracks. I'm just my wife is watching my wife, and she's like, why are you laughing? I'm like, this is so like, if you're a Star Trek fan, like we were watching Galaxy Quest, she's like, what kind of nerd would have blueprints for a spaceship? So I go to like my library and pull out I pull out the blueprints, and she's, who did I marry?
I just can't believe they were the Free Enterprise is one of the most self-indulgent movies ever made.
I don't know. I mean, I think I've loved it ever since I was a kid. I mean, one of the things that sold me on the movie was in like the first few minutes where you have that dream sequence. William Shatner shows up. I do all the love scenes myself, and then kick the little fucker's ass.
I mean, it was an amazing thing making that movie. I mean, it kills me that it's basically been out of print for 20 years. It's really hard to see.
It's tough to find.
It's hard to find. You can find it. It's not supposed to be streaming anywhere, but you can find it. Yeah, you can find but it doesn't have a 4K version, and there are things about it like the original score I've never been happy with. And I mean, if I did put it out, I wouldn't change it. I would just make it a little better.
I rented it on Netflix back when you got the DVDs. I rented it on Netflix years ago, and don't tell anyone, but I might have made a copy.
Well, it's okay. It's good. You can't get it, so I'm all about that. Well, listen, I gotta go.
Yeah. I do. I thank you so much. I hope you drive safe. If there are any links you want me to share, let me know, and I'll get
just the audio drama that I'm really proud of that I directed, True Noir, that came out in March. You can get it on all the audio platforms, but it's got, Katie Sackhoff is in it, Michael Rosenbaum's in it. There's so many great actors. David Strathairn is in it.
I love him. He's amazing.
He plays Frank Nitti. He's incredible. The actors that I got to work with, Anthony LaPaglia is in it. It's one of my favorite things I ever did, and I'm very very proud.
Is that the right website? Did I get it?
Yeah, truenoir.co. That's the website. Yeah, that's the correct website for the actual show itself. But you can find it. It'll give you links when you go there. But you can see, if you just scroll down to the cast, it's an incredible. I can't believe I work with this cast. It blew me away.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So you'll enjoy it.
And thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming on to talk about this.
Oh, I love whenever. Ask me whenever. I'll come on whenever, as long as I would have come on longer, but I have to go. I have to drive across town.
I believe it.
No
I
transporters
appreciate
yet.
it.
No.
No transporters except for the
Well, I will see you
in
all
our
later. Thanks for
imaginations.
great to stream with you guys. What a great erudite stream we had here. I love
A lot of fun.
that.
Do our best.
All right. I guess live
Drive
long and
safe.
prosper.
Yeah. Take care.
Oh, and I also have this. Mark made it.
Yeah.
Nice. All
Thank you, Jill. Yeah.
right. I'll see you guys later.
Take care.
Take it easy.
Bye.
And I gotta head out now too. So I promised
Mark.
I'd help Paulie with his stream. So. And
Oh,
there's a lot
that's
of
great,
fun-
Polly.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
if he's still streaming, I'll see if I can try to raid
Yeah.
that if I can.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
All
Okay,
right.
see you all later.
Take care, everyone.
and
Yeah.
I can't wait for next time.
Thanks, Jill.
Okay, so thank you, Rob. And bye, Robert, says Gavin.
I'm just looking at that cast. My God, Robert's cast for that radio thing is just incredible. John Kapilos as well, another actor I absolutely love, character actor, just fantastic character actor. Bill Mummy as well, Vincent Pastor.
Oh, Mummy! Wow.
What a cast, man! William Sadler.
Katie Sackhoff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Nicholas Turturro.
I think Katie Sackhoff's doing her rewatch of season 2 right now of Battlestar Galactica. It's been pretty interesting to see because she's never seen the show. So
she's got
I think
a
people in the
podcast
fandom think that you would watch your own show, but they're people. They don't watch their own shows usually.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I
of
think
actors-
Denise Crosby did something like that recently, where she's
lot of actors don't
watching
like
it with
watching their
the seventh rule. I don't know if she'd watched it before,
Yeah.
and all of that. And also, Walter Koenig is on which show is he on? Was that a seventh rule too?
Yeah, I heard he was doing some kind of a rewatch of the original series, but I haven't checked it out, so I'm not sure if that's even still going on or not. But
I don't know. I just know that I saw it when they were advertising it, and they said, "Oh, pay a few $100 and you can be on." And I was like, I thought about it, but I didn't do it. Jason Love says, "Hello, anti-derivative Jill and panel. Hope you're having a great Tuesday." And we are talking about For All Mankind and what predictions we might have for season 6. So if any of you guys are watching it and you have any predictions, and especially since I've got Lance here, was there anything that you wanted to talk about in that vein?
Yeah, I can only stay for about another 15 minutes because I'm streaming as well shortly. Remember I told you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. You did.
I did. I didn't think I was going to be able to come on, but I got all the work done that I was going to get done.
you can get more than happy with.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's all going to revolve around communications. I think there's going to be a communication thing they receive, or there's going to be something that's ambiguous that at the end of the season will turn out to be proven to be from somewhere else. That's my prediction. I don't think they're going to find like an alien temple or anything like that. It's not going to go that far.
No space jockey or anything like that.
No, but I do
don't think so either.
I mean, we might get an alien ship at the end of season 6. That's not impossible, but I would put more money on it being like a communication from far away that has some kind of tenuous message, or it might be because in an earlier season didn't we have the Voyager probe going out?
I don't think we've actually seen a Voyager probe in the whole show.
You know, because you know, like in Starman, John Carpenter's Starman, we've got that probe which actually went out in reality, and it's got like a some kind of laser disc on it, hasn't it, with a whole load of footage of the world and music and a message from the people of the planet Earth recorded by a child, which is
yeah, and I don't see why
it's out there somewhere in the universe. That's still going somewhere.
I don't see why Voyager they wouldn't have sent out Voyager. They might have.
I mean,
I'd have to see one of the earlier
montages at the opening of a season. Didn't it get
well,
mentioned?
Possibly.
I mean, in one of the earlier seasons, I think it's season 3, they show the announcement of what would be the James Webb telescope in our universe, but in theirs it's the Thomas Paine telescope because he was killed in that shoot down of his plane. So yeah, I think that's the only real thing we've seen in terms of like satellites or space probes. There's references, I think, in this past season and the one before it, where we know that they're sending out probes to do like these seeker missions where we're trying to find life in various places. But I think what the implication was this past season was that only one of the probes they sent out kicked something back that was promising, and that was the one on Titan, and that's why they went to Titan. But yeah, I mean, I would assume in this universe we might actually have. I mean, going back to Star Trek, there's no reason there couldn't have been a Voyager 6 in this universe.
So that's funny you said that, because I looked it up because I couldn't remember myself, and Lance had a much better memory than I had. They don't only have 1 or 2 probes, they've got 5 probes in the For All Mankind universe going out to explore things.
Okay. So I think we might get something either tied in with them, or it may be, it might be something that happens at the beginning of this next season that then gets a response at the end of that season. I think if we just get a whole season of more
exploration,
Mars becoming independent, that'll be a massive part of the narrative as well. But I think if that's all we get, that would be sad.
You did that for 2 seasons already. It was nice.
Another thing I think that will be is, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, is I guarantee you there'll be a terrorist attack on the lift.
No, we didn't say that. We didn't.
I guarantee that's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have read the Mars trilogy. Have you guys read the
Mars? We referenced that at the very beginning of our stream. Right. And then Robert Meyer Burnett picked up on that, and he was mentioning what happens in there.
Yeah. So in the Stanley Robinson trilogy, one of the things when Mars is fighting to become independent is they blow up the space elevator. And it crashes, and it's of course it's so tall, and the wreckage of it all kind of crashes down like a coiled snake onto the Mars surface. I think that there will be some kind of I think the lift will be completed probably at the montage at the beginning of season 6. So the lift will be operational. Maybe the episode will be the opening of the lift. The episode 1 of season 6 might.
And why just 1? Why not show that lifts? We've got a couple of them now. Who else has one?
No, I think it will just be the 1.
Just the 1? Okay.
I mean, there's no reason to believe the moon doesn't have at least 1 at this point.
Yeah.
But also, in case anybody wants the Mars trilogy.
Right?
Yeah, I've got in the other room also. There's about 4 different covers you can get for it. I found that a very hard trilogy to get through. It took me about 2 years to read it.
I mean, they are pretty thick books.
But I mean, it wasn't just that.
They got a lot going on.
The style of the writing got quite bogged down in various minutiae things, rather than those are books that are not driven by really solidified characters. They're driven by the science of what it would take to put a colony on Mars.
Well, they're kind of like not so much like
that. A technical manual.
No, but it's much more about the social growth and how that would expand. And it's almost like those books are almost like reading a massive Wikipedia page, and then occasionally you get actual characters and conversations in.
It's sort of like a mix of a philosophical text and sort of a scientific how-to manual in parts. But
cool.
Yeah.
I would like more of that. I don't want to feel like it's just Mars is just another Earth that I can't breathe. I want to know, how do we live here? How do we actually grow? And so building Maru will be part of that. But also the people are important too, as you were saying. And we did talk a lot during this live stream about the kids, the teenagers who are going to be full adults in season 6. But one of the kids we haven't talked about yet was Graciana, who has a very tiny role in season 5 as she's going to Margot for help, and But we see at the end that Margot is showing her some newspapers and maybe getting her excited about space herself. So will she take up the family business?
I think she'll be a key character in the next season.
Yeah.
I wonder if Margot. I mean, another thing we might see in season 6 is, you know, you might get a scene in the episode 1 of Margot coming, you know, being released, coming out of prison.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Somebody else said that she's in prison for life, but was there a statement that she couldn't have parole? I really don't know.
I mean, it would be interesting that maybe she gets a pardon. You see, I thought when they had various people coming to meet her and something, I thought there was going to be a problem that only she could solve at the end of season 5, some kind of technical thing, which probably would have been a bit pants. So I'm glad they didn't do that. But I do feel like somehow her
that's what I thought too, that she was going to get to at least get not be able to leave prison, but get like a stay away or just like be able to get out just to help with the science. But Aleda ended up filling those shoes in terms of helping.
Yeah,
with
I think she still has a role to play in the story somehow. I'm not quite sure how. But
well, and that's another thing I didn't mention is the big death for this season was Ed, and we did talk about that. But the big season for season 6, probably Margot.
Yeah,
well, there was Ed, and there's also the girl who's been left behind.
Yeah, you're talking about Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly.
Yeah, we lost 2 Baldwins this past season, and so a lot of us were surprised that was the narrative decision they tried to make.
We don't 100% know that she's dead, though, do we? Not 100%.
We do. It's been pretty much confirmed by the showrunners and everyone, and so you know she's not coming back.
I thought there might be some kind of twist coming that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of that comes from like wishful thinking on our behalf. So
yeah, I like her character.
Yeah, I can't believe that the Sojourner crew didn't try to rescue her or whatever. I guess it just wasn't practical.
I mean, that would have been a whole lot of 20 minutes on that.
I kind of feel like the way they did it this you know, how they portrayed everything is that Titan is not going to be the next Mars. Titan is just where they find life first, and. I don't think we're going to have any like colony there, but
you will have a science station.
There'll be a science station.
You'll probably have like an Antarctica style research base.
It'll be like what was it? Not Jonestown. What was the moon?
Jamestown was on the moon.
Mm-hmm. Jamestown was the moon.
Jamestown. Yeah.
Phantom Outsider in the chat said, "Did they mention the monkeys that were sent into space that came back super smart?" Or is that just something the Simpsons touched on?
No, I think
probably a Simpsons thing or possibly a Jerry Anderson project. I have no idea. But,
I've got to shoot off, Jill, because I've got to eat before my stream at 8.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please go nourish yourself for your show.
Come in and
hopefully we get to have you again. Hopefully it's not as long of a wait between seasons, and we get to have you back in some capacity.
I'm doing my own stream on For All Mankind on Sunday.
And we'll be there.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be there. But
and we're talking about the whole show. Which I mean, you've kind of covered some of it today. But I'm going to make every guest make a choice about their favorite episode, their favorite character, their favorite line, and things like that. So I'll send Jill a definitive list. Okay. So you can have your choices ready before the day. And
that's going to be fun.
I'm really struggling over who's my favorite character. Might have to do a top 3 list because I like a lot of the characters are really well written. And
if you get a top 3, so do I.
Yeah, there's there's not just but favorite character and also your favorite actor on the show.
Okay.
Okay, that could be different.
They can be 2 different people. They don't have to be the same. So we're going to do that.
Yeah, because Dev might not be my favorite character, but his acting is superb.
He's a good actor, that guy. Yeah.
I can see that.
And the standard of the acting is pretty high. Did you guys mention today? One thing I was a bit disappointed about in the finale considering how violent the finale was. The number of people that actually got killed seemed really small. And when they did that fight where they had the high ground and the guys kind of got into that shop, I mean, they specifically said barricade all the doors so they've got nowhere to run. So, okay, so maybe that door wasn't barricaded well enough. I don't know. That seemed a bit, considering they specifically put a line in saying, make sure they can't get in anywhere. We want them out in the open. And then when they had them and the firing started, I think we only ever saw one soldier get injured. The radio guy kind of went down.
Yeah, I think it was on their side. Nobody, apparently, no Marzi got hurt, which is a little bit weird.
No,
but, also very fortuitous.
Some had been killed prior to that. We saw quite a few get killed at different
yeah, in episode 9 there was it was a massacre.
But when the firing started in that ambush, loads of the soldiers would have been killed, and I thought that was a bit weak. And I don't know if they were trying.
Maybe they did downplay it. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it could be that they were trying not to kill them. But at that stage, because so many of them had died, I just felt like the stakes are really high now. You can't, like, they took out their command team, killed all of them. So yeah, I don't know. That was the one thing about the finale for me that was a bit annoying. But otherwise, a really strong show. One of the best shows in the last 5 years, and one of the best shows on TV now.
Yeah, definitely not just one of the best science fictions, but one of the best shows.
No, yeah,
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. I don't feel like I'm watching a science fiction show when I watch it. Does that make sense?
It feels like you're watching what we should be, or what we could be.
It doesn't feel like it does feel like I'm watching something that really does exist. So it's not sort of over there. It's more here,
And when they want to exposition dump some of the politics because they don't want to get into it that much, they just throw up a news broadcast, and so that definitely feeds into you feeling like this is really happening.
Yeah, no, those montages, the historical montages, are really effective as well, and really love all of that stuff. Anyway, well, look, I will see you guys on Sunday, but I got to run now because we're going to be doing a breakdown of the movies.
Right, I got to put your link in there. And is there anything you want to promote? Obviously your show that's happening right now.
Well, it's I mean, we'll be on in 45 minutes, but we're doing a breakdown of the career of Terence Hill, aka Mario Garotti, who is a famous Italian spaghetti western actor who did the Trinity films, and we were supposed to do it on Monday, but we had to move it because one of our panelists had a very ill pet, so we rescheduled it to tonight. I've also got an industry interview tomorrow with Duncan Capp, who's a special effects coordinator, and he's just done the biggest explosion in film history. And we're going to be showing it on my channel tomorrow for the first time. No one will have seen it yet because the movie hasn't been released in the West. It's been released in the Middle East, but it's not out in the West yet. So I've got all the behind the scenes footage and stuff we're going to show people. So that's tomorrow at 7.
That's rad.
So it'll be on this time tomorrow. It would have started 20 minutes ago tomorrow. So earlier than normal because he's in Riyadh. He's currently in Riyadh prepping another film. So,
where's Riyadh? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Riyadh is in Saudi Arabia.
Oh.
So my guest is
be safe.
Saudi Arabia, yeah, but he's a very in demand special effects guy at the minute, and
Jason loves
he worked on Band of Brothers and he worked on Batman Begins and all kinds of big movies. So going to be very
wow. Band of Brothers is an incredible show. So
yeah,
a miniseries.
That was one of his first jobs. So,
but I gotta let you eat. You're running out of time to eat. So
yeah. So I will catch you later and see you guys on Sunday.
All right, Lance, take it easy.
Yeah, see you. Bye. And subscribe to Outcast Creative and Lance. Yeah, absolutely. Well, because I had a lot to say. We said a lot already, but we covered most of what I wanted to talk about. But I just have a little bit more, and then if you've got extra time, Bill. Or otherwise, if I need to let you go too, I can. But if you don't, then I do have a few more things. But thanks everybody in the chat for being patient. I couldn't read everything like I usually like to do because we had such an animated discussion go on. I couldn't stop that. but we're glad you're here, and I have internally read all your comments, even if I didn't read them out loud. And Phantom Outsider, as Phantom Outsider says, had to look as it was 31 seasons of The Simpsons ago, but according to Mark D with a C, that's a little while ago. It is. Well, The Simpsons was good a little while ago. That's a nice way to put it. Explosions are awesome also. Yeah. Well, and when they're not hurting anybody anyway. But I really love For All Mankind, and I am just so thrilled that we have such a great panel today. And this I'm just upset that for much of it I had my wrong microphone on. I didn't realize that, but eventually I did. That was terrifying. I can't. I'm afraid to listen back and find out just how long I sounded awful. Did I sound bad?
I mean, offhand, when you did disappear, yeah, I don't think. I mean, I think we actually heard you pretty well. It's just every once in a while you would kind of like disappear, and we wouldn't see your image, but we'd see the icon. So, yeah, I don't think that you were coming through, bad or anything. I think we actually heard you.
Okay? So the microphone wasn't terrible ever during the live stream.
I mean,
okay, that's
it
good
just
to
seemed
know.
like your visual stuff was.
It was using the microphone from my webcam, and normally that's terrible. But anyway, okay, if it wasn't too bad, then I won't worry about it too much.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
anyway.
it didn't seem like there was anything too strange. Yeah, you came in clearly the whole time, at least when you were present.
We did mention Avery Stevens. We didn't talk too much about her, but I can't. I know. All I can tell from that last scene where she's on Mars with the Steven, she's accepted her legacy, and so it seems like she's going to be staying on Mars, and so that is that is going to be something. I just need a second.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's some of the threads going into season 6 are going to be interesting for those of you listening at home.
Yes,
I think because I mean we already finished the Titan thread because all of the threads we had, from season 5 going into 6. I mean we had, the Martian independence thing, which has now been solved. They're now independent, or at least mostly. We don't know who's recognized them, but all the little political stuff has been done. So now we have President Miles going into next season, and then the Titan thread established that there is life elsewhere in the universe, or especially in the solar system. We'll see how they expand on that going into next season. I fully expect them to have discovered life on like Europa or prehistoric life on Mars.
Yeah, right. Oh, could that be? Wow, you just made me think of a whole lot of things because Kelly didn't really want to give up on her crater. She didn't finish really searching on it, and I don't know if Alex is going to grow up to be a doctor. Well, he's grown up, but if he's going to be a doctor or if he's going to carry on his mom's legacy and try to find more life.
I mean, it is kind of unclear because I kind of got the vibes that whatever he does, it's going to be tied to Mars. And I don't know necessarily if he's going to be wanting to be that explorer sort of person where he takes on that mantle of the family. Because now we've had 2 generations of Baldwin that have been, space explorer people. And maybe season 6 is really him learning to take on that mantle from being something else. Because, I mean, we saw that he was a part of the Happy Valley Corps. He was trying to be a medic. And so he has a little bit of firearms training. And I think that him shooting his friend either will turn him off of that or...
Haskell. Yeah, we haven't mentioned Haskell either. Do you think he'll show up, or he's just going to go back home? Or maybe he doesn't like space?
I have a feeling it's not the last we've seen of Haskell. And I kind of think that the new generation is going to basically consist of Alex, Lily, Avery, Marcus, and then maybe Graciana. All of them on Mars in some capacity or another.
And for people at home, Haskell is Marcus. So the same person.
That's the best friend of all of the Marsies.
Well, and
Our young Marzi friends.
basically the way that Alex and Avery bonded over, unfortunately, under the unfortunate heavy injury that Alex inflicted, but at the same time, Avery could understand it and relate to it because they're both in the state of war, and she had just killed her first victim that day, and she was not feeling great about it either.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex was just lucky that Marcus survived. Jason Love says blast explosive protection area, shrapnel debris. Okay. Oh, I didn't read the whole thing. It's Jason Love is talking to Phantom Outsider about how awesome explosions are, I guess. And preferably out of range with fridges, couches on the other end, or other older appliances. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, right, exactly. As long as no one is getting hurt. Yeah, explosions can be fun. That's why Mythbusters was such a fun show. They knew that. So they'd do their science and experimentation, and at the end of the show they'd blow something up. Actually Red Letter Media does that too. I don't blow anything up. I'm not going to start blowing things up.
Well, Red Letter Media does it on occasion if the movie is really bad.
Yeah.
Or they
and it's not necessarily an explosion, but like some kind of
or they do some kind of a thing to destroy whatever bad video that they watched that week. They seem to have slowed down on that a little bit lately, but
yeah, it just depends on how angry they get. It's like, oh, was this that bad? Then yeah, we've got to take this out and shoot it. And hello to Snortapoopus Cuber. Great to see you. And Jason Love says, boom. See? Oh, yeah. King Dolphin TV. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's so many good shows today. You can go see Polly and Latino Slant, or you can go watch Lance from the Outcast Creative with his show today. Or you could go and visit King Dolphin TV. Raymond Feliciano and Sandra are celebrating Sandra's birthday. It is Sandra's birthday today. Happy birthday, Sandra. If you watch this on the replay, I do know sometimes they lurk. And so I'm just happy to be your friends and hope you have a great birthday stream, great birthday day, and hope Raymond baked you a beautiful cake or something. I don't know what he did. We'll see what Raymond does. And Jason Love says, an excuse to use a grenade launcher with safety first. Oh, yeah, that's right. Snortapoopus. Yes. Yeah, and I mentioned that not just because it's her birthday, but also because he does have a thing where you say boom in the chat, and he plays a video of a nuclear explosion. Snortapoopus sniffles. Okay, so the last big topic I had was that we didn't touch on was, well, 2020 was a year for us in our reality, and it was kind of depressing. And it was the whole pandemic situation and COVID and everything. And so I'm hoping that For All Mankind does not parallel that, but
I don't think, I kind of think when we come back, it's going to be like a very small reference in like some kind of a newsreel. It's like, oh, they detected some kind of a thing, and because of the advances in medical technologies, it has now been rectified.
Yeah, we fixed it. That's a great solution. Oh, luckily it didn't spread very far because we nicked it, before it even reached the state lines, and that'd be
went beyond.
Rad.
But because I think that whatever the situation is with that, I think, because some people have already been speculating, well, COVID happens in their universe too, and I'm like, well, this is supposed to be more optimistic, so I'm not convinced that it does.
Exactly.
And I don't think that we're going to see it, and if we do see it, it's going to come in that form like we mentioned.
The montage just on a newspaper, like whatever. Oh, this was something, but now it's nothing. Okay, great. Okay, so the last thing I have is, well, we have casting. So we don't know a whole lot about season 6, but we do have some casting. Oh goodness, that's where my season 6 cast here. So we're gonna get Muriel Enos as Boyd again, so she's coming back for season 6. And of course, Aleda's coming back. So Yeah, now the only one who's still around, who's been around since season 1, I guess Margot. And so Margot and Leda, but we don't see a whole lot of Margot anymore.
Yeah.
And
I think
Sean
that next season's going to be it.
Yeah, Sean Kaufman is coming back as Alex, as the last living Baldwin. And then we've got the governor. The governor is supposed to be in season 6. Of course, he's not the governor of Mars anymore. Now he's the president. Well, will he be the president? We didn't even mention that either. So we talked about.
Well, I mean, I touched on it I touched on it very, very lightly because I was mentioning that when we come back in 2020, you're basically going to have possibly JFK Jr. as U.S. president, Miles as president of Mars, and then you're going to have Polivanov at the end of his. They're all going to be these 3 leaders at the end of their terms. So it's going to be interesting to see how they relate to each other and what they're trying to do to leave, their legacies forward. That's why I'm kind of thinking we might not actually get out of 2020, or at least not that far out of it.
Oh, really?
I mean, 2020 is sort of, because I mean, if you do it afterwards, then it, there's no way you can have a 3-term U.S. president. So whoever will be president after that is kind of an open question. Miles doesn't have to follow U.S. rules. He can serve for as long as he wants. There's no term limit as far as I'm aware yet.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things I was wondering is if they're going to write a constitution for how the powers are distributed. I want to say hello to Dude Bro Seth 420. I was thinking nobody was going to show up from Rumble today, but it's so good to see you now. So happy. Glad you're here. And let's see. Yeah. Oops, I lost my cast information. Where? That's not right. That's a different document. I had a lot of documents open today, which are confusing me currently as I'm nearing the end here. And I'm actually a little distracted because I'm looking for someone to raid. And so yeah, Coaster Ronan, he was good, so he'll be back. And we'll probably see. I want to see what's the deal with his wife. Did he get his family back? That's a good question. That's a good question for season 6. Hopefully he did. And yeah, if he's I'm sure he will if he's president of Russia, and I foresee Russia leaning more towards capitalism because that's the way forward if you don't want the Soviet Union to collapse.
I don't think they're going to go towards capitalism, but I definitely don't think they're going to be communist anymore. So I see them kind of transitioning toward maybe like a democratic socialist or social democracy sort of thing. So something closer to what we see in like the Nordic countries. So not
well, but even those countries
Soviet Russia.
do embrace capitalism, is what I'm saying.
Well, they're mixed market economies, but traditionally their core operating system is more of like it's not necessarily, they operate within capitalism because the world does, but the way they kind of do things are more socialistic than say it would be in the United States, where we don't have as much, which I think is sort of shows how propaganda works. But socialism and communism are not the same thing, even though that's kind of what they've been painted as. And
Dude Bro says it'll be an oligarchy like the real post-Soviet Russia. Oh, but that'll be post-Soviet though. We still have the Soviet Union hasn't collapsed. The Cold War is over, but for some reason the Soviet Union
we're just assuming
we're
assuming that in 2012 the Soviet Union as we knew it collapsed, but we don't know exactly what happens after.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, because they were saying that Kravchenko had been removed from office.
Oh, right.
And the whole thing's been over. So
yeah, and that's possible.
We don't know what form it turns into. We're just kind of assuming it becomes something moderately better, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. That is what the stream is all about, is wondering about what we will see in season 6. And so far we've been doing pretty great on that. And then also we have Ruby Cruz as Lily Dale. Unfortunately, she hasn't been confirmed, but it would be strange if she wasn't there. So she has to be there because she and Alex, they're partners. So I don't see why that wouldn't continue.
I mean, unless she's been downgraded to like recurring character, which would be somewhat bizarre.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah, but
yeah,
she's a Marzi for life. I don't see her going back to Earth for school like she was saying they were saying she was
no.
going to do.
Although we might see the beginnings of possibly a college, because there was no. We know that there's at least some kind of a academic institute that's teaching students something, but
Mhm.
there's nothing analogous to like a college, and they're going to need some kind of higher education um, institution to kind of keep all of their people educated in some manner or another. So
Oh, that would be a
um,
great way for Lily to show her, show her independence from, in her life. If she led the college, that'd be pretty fun.
well, maybe not
I
lead
hope
it, but
that's
possibly. Well, I mean, this should be. Because I mean, if it formed in 2012, she'd probably be well out of it. I mean, there's no reason she couldn't be
no,
teaching, but
that's what
then
I'm
again,
saying.
her because I mean, her interests are kind of like strange in that she could go the filmmaker route, she can go journalist, she can go, college as well. So there's a bunch of different areas that she can probably, or maybe some kind of combination of all three next season. But there's some people who are speculating that we might have like some kind of a love quad between Marcus, Avery, Alex, and Lily, and I think that's going to be. I don't know what that would turn into,
Mhm.
but potentially maybe
Oh man.
they're all going to be in their
Okay.
20s, so who knows?
The students become the teachers. And it could some of them anyway. That could be fun. But we're sure, even though they haven't been confirmed, we're sure Ennis Asserson as Avery Stevens and Eddie Gathergy as, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right, as Isaiah will be back for season 6 too. So okay, I was wondering. I grabbed this list and I didn't read it, so I was wondering if any new people were going to be on the list. But so far, it looks like they're just postulating on the return actors who are coming because
Because I
we don't
vaguely
know a whole lot
remember,
about season 6 yet.
because I heard that they had cast another person, somebody new, to play a new character. And I want to make sure I'm not just making this up.
Okay, if you can find a new character for season 6, that would be great, and then we can wrap this up because I think we've done a wonderful job, or at least myself and my panelists have done a pretty awesome job. If anybody wants to consider some of the predictions they might have for season 6, I think this is a good starting point for a lot of those conversations. Or if anybody has any to add, please add it in the comments below if you enjoyed our conversation. I want to hear what you have to say. And we'll wait a moment to see, as Philip is looking for that. I've got to find a place to raid on Rumble and on YouTube. So we'll just banter just for a little bit while I do that, while I take care of that. And
Well, one of the things that I did learn in the process of, learning about season 6 was I had heard a rumor that Topher Grace was cast in
what?
season 6, and
Topher
so
Grace?
Eric Foreman of that 70s show fame.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And he
he's
was
going to be
in
in season 6.
Spider-Man one time also.
Yeah, I think with Spider-Man 3. So he's apparently going to be a major character next season. We have no idea who that
No
character is or
way.
what they stand for
That's
or
cool.
who they're going to represent. But I'm interested in seeing what that's going to look like because I think that we're not privy to who else has been cast so far in season 6, but I imagine that we have more people coming in uh, just to fill it out because I mean you can't have a whole season without just just a handful of characters. So I think that we're probably going to stick around on Mars next season and maybe have like some peripheral stuff on Titan. But I think the thing that we didn't mention at all this entire discussion was what does the Mars 94 thing actually mean? Like, what's its function going to be going into next season? And I think I was kind of initially thinking that it's going to be like a space Chernobyl, but I don't think that's the case. But I kind of see it as being sort of because I mean it was going it was having a meltdown was the whole issue, and it had been impacted by some kind of micrometeor. So that's why they had to abandon it and move on from it. But
Yes.
according to the ending of the season, it kept going through space, and so now it might not be at Saturn, but it's moving outward further into the solar system, and it's detected something. And so narratively, I'm kind of wondering what it functions as, like the main kind of thrust of the season. So I don't know if they're gonna try to go to it to recover information, or if they're gonna try to use it as some kind of a thing. Because I'm thinking in my heart of hearts that because it's basically like a moving atomic bomb, it's a weapon,
Oh
and
shoot, I didn't think about that. That's kind of
any
scary. No.
anybody can use it as long as they can get a hold of it to their
Uh-oh.
advantage. And
That's
so
not good.
that I think becomes an open threat to Mars. Now, who
Because
would it
because
be?
essentially the USSR, well, I mean, they're diplomatically friends with the United States in this universe, so it would have to be
Yeah.
somebody else taking control of the Mars 94.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's a scary proposition, but of course there are some scary propositions on the show. I think that is possible.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the only thing I can think of
Looking,
that makes sense to me. Because I mean, other than that, because in my mind, I'm thinking somebody goes to visit it, and then that trips something on that turns the computer on. But that doesn't really seem to be the case, because it seems like the detection of whatever that was is what turned Mars 94 on. So if it gets turned on, and then you have that excess radiation, you have that aspect. So you could have that be both, like a two-pronged plot point, where it's like it's detected this thing. What does that thing mean? And then you have this, not bargaining chip or anything, but something that could threaten Mars. And maybe it's not that somebody, is actively trying to destroy Mars or anything, but maybe Mars 94 is coming back and it might hit Mars. And so you have that being the thrust of the season, being we got to go do this thing to stop Mars 94 from hitting Mars, or else the entire thing is going to go up in flames. So that I can see sustaining a season, but outside of that, I'm not
wow.
sure.
Okay, well, and that could be a big threat. What was great about season 5 is my favorite part is that they didn't dwell on just one storyline where we had a couple of threats. We had the murder mystery, we had the the problems with getting to Titan, and it just did such a good job of pulling all the stories together, and even with all the scientific nitpicks I had along the way. I want to thank you specifically for putting up with all of that. It's one of my favorite things to go through those things, and you did a great job of
Well,
having answers for me when I had questions.
all I have is my speculation. I try my best. So I'm just happy
You
that you
did.
had
You
me
did
along
great.
for the ride. And I look forward to actually being present for season 6. Hopefully, nothing happens to me before then. I hope that the wait between seasons is, a lot shorter than it was this time.
Well, yeah, stay safe. You've got to
Yeah.
come back. Come back for
Yeah.
season 6 next
Well,
year.
definitely
And
planning to.
in the meantime, you're always welcome to hang out if it's like a hangout stream, or just see what's up.
Yeah, more
And
than
so
happy
we'll
to.
see you around. And before you
Yeah.
go, do you want to plug your channel, your Val
Yeah, I mean, I probably should.
47?
Yep. You can always go to Fall HQ 47. That's Fleet Admiral. That was my former Fleet Admiral Levi acronym. But now it's just Fall Speculative Worlds. And so whenever we get a chance, we're going to start posting more videos about the different alternate realities that we see throughout fiction. I want to focus on science fiction, fantasy, and horror primarily. But at some point here, pretty quick, I'm going to do a Star City review of the first 3 episodes, and then we'll, kind of do the same thing we're doing here, but it'll just be about it'll be about season 1 of Star City until that's over, and then, hopefully come back for season 6 of For All Mankind here. So feel free to check me out. You can also follow me on all the social medias. I'm everywhere. You just have to look up my name. But outside of that, it's always fun. Can't wait to come back. Oh, I think I lost you on audio.
And Gavin has a request. He often does.
Great. I am great.
There it is. He said Phil is great, Jill is great, and so is. Thank you again to Phil, of course, being here and being patient with me and being here for every stream. And thanks also to Robert Meyer Burnett for lending his time this morning. I know it is had him up early California time. He was here at 9 a.m. his time, and I am eternally grateful.
Yep. California time is its own thing, because I mean, he and I'm in San Diego, he's in LA, so yeah, we're on the same track. That this is a little bit early for us, but we're more than happy to show up, I'm sure.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so but also thank you to Lance for the Outcast Creative he didn't even have time and he showed up. And so thank you to Lance for spending a moment here, and Mark D with the C for spending an entire half of the workday. Like, I mean, he does a lot of work from home stuff. So I appreciate him carving out some time for us. And also for Polly. So I'll be sending you guys over to Polly if you're on the YouTube side. If you're on the Rumble side, I'll be sending you over to Banked Linguini's home channel. And he's playing Palin Around. So he's playing some game. I think it's kind of like Pokemon or something. But anyway, that should be fun. I like Pokemon. But did I get everybody who was on the panel? That was everybody, right?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So I don't want to miss anyone. Of course, there's a lot more people in the chat. I appreciate all of you, and especially if you're on the Rumble side, Dude Bro Seth, I'm glad you're here. And Scooby Pup, hey, I didn't see you there. Jill killed M5 by spilling coffee on it. I did. This is the second. No, I shouldn't be admitting that live. This is the second keyboard I've gone through this year, so maybe I need to stop drinking coffee at my desk. Just down it when I make it. And it's 88 plus humidity, so it feels 98. I don't even know what my weather is, but if we're doing a weather report, it's 90 here. Yeah, well, we're in Texas, and so I'm sure it's pretty hot in California too.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't checked the weather either, but I don't think it's lately. It's been like 70s, 60s, so not too bad.
India tomorrow night with the Canadian Spider-Man channel. That's gonna be cool. Okay, so many cool things going on. I've never been to India, but Spidey has, and he's gonna tell us all about it on his travel channel, which is pretty rad. And this is our last stream for a while, but thanks again. And we'll see you all whenever we see you again. For me, I've got Twilight Zone coming up on next Tuesday. So now that we're done with For All Mankind, I'm getting back into the Twilight Zone with the season 4 episode Miniature, starring Robert Duvall, which will be really, really fun. And of course, written by Charles Beaumont. I can't wait to get back in the zone, the Twilight Zone. And this Friday. Oh wait, what am I doing this Friday? Oh, All Good Things this Friday, Next Generation episode review. I have not done a Star Trek in a while, so I've been itching for that. And so that'll be phenomenal. I got to start working on that now. And so anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for hanging out with me. That's what we think about what's going to happen in season 6. And I'm sad we don't have any more episodes, but I'm glad that we're going to get them. They're working. They're in the
process.
I don't know. In the oven.
But live long and prosper, everyone, and so long, and thanks for all the fish.
They knew it would come to this.
Learn all that is learnable.
So I hope you learned something today.
And the ways our differences combine to create meaning and beauty.
I enjoy hearing what you have to say, so leave me a comment.
It has always been easier to destroy than to create.
So let's continue creating conversations and ideas.
May we together become greater than the sum of both of us.
Share out the stream to bring more here. Bye for now. See you next time.
Well, now you have something new to think about. Carry on.
All right, move along. Done. Stop it. Get off of the things. Go outside. Get some food. It's like, It's a time of day where you live. Go do something. Shut up, Snoopy. I don't care. You smoke too much. Let's go. Let's go adventure. Let's go explore.
See you around the galaxy.